across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
There you are. Good evening and welcome to the Political Asylum right here on Talk. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan and I'll be your host for the next 3 thrilling hours of news, views and topical debate all the way to 10 o'clock. Get involved, get stuck in, get it off your chest and call me on 0344 499 1000, or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number and I promise to play your message out. It is Wednesday, August the 13th. Unlucky for some. Here's what's coming up. This is how Britain rolls, folks. The people demand to know the ethnicity and asylum status of those charged with serious crimes, especially sex offences. Two-tier Keir and his trusty simpering sidekick Yvette Cooper concede that yes, the public do have a right to know this information. And today the police, who until now have run an official nationwide policy to keep these facts secret, are given new guidance to reveal the truth about accused foreign nationals. You with me so far? Sounds good, doesn't it? So far, so good. But wait for it. The guidance tells cops to only disclose the backgrounds of some foreign suspects in some high-profile cases, and only then if they fear that their preferred veil of secrecy could cause the kind of unrest we saw when the authorities lied about that Southport monster Axel Rudakabana. This isn't what we want. This is a shameful fudge that will continue, in most cases, to keep British citizens in the dark. Surely the Rozzers should not be allowed to make these decisions. Surely they should be made to deliver the transparency we deserve and the transparency that is our right. Let me know what you think, especially if you've got a less than friendly neighbourhood asylum seeker hotel near you. 0344499 1000. In other news, I'll show the TikTok video in which a migrant boasts from his luxury hotel about how easy it is to hitch a ride on an illegal cross-channel dinghy and then take this country for a ride. Apparently, this spiralling shambles, though, is not Labour's fault. It's the evil Tories. Fair enough, the Conservatives were a disaster. But nearly a year and 2 months into Starmer's catastrophic government, just maybe, old two-tier must begin to shoulder the blame for the chaos unfolding before a shocked nation's very eyes. 0344499 1000. Also tonight, Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson focusing on what really matters: the right of self-styled gender-neutral teachers to demand not to be addressed as Mr., Mrs. or Miss, but instead as MX. MX. A, couple of questions. A, how the hell do you pronounce that? And B, isn't this imposing on children a contested ideology, an unscientific pretense? Shouldn't kids be taught the truth as opposed to fashionable lies? 0344499 1000. Meanwhile, let no one accuse the police of going soft on crime. The vigilant Surrey Constabulary has sent out undercover female officer cops to pose as joggers to catch male catcallers. No one's condoning catcalling. It makes women feel uncomfortable and even threatened. But with serious crime rates soaring all over the country and conviction rates plummeting, is the jog squad really a good use of taxpayers' money? 0344499 1000. Also tonight, Rupert Lowe, a former Reform UK MP and now, of course, redoubtable Independent MP for Great Yarmouth. Rupert will join me and we will discuss the state of the nation and the escalating horror of the migrant crisis. And finally, JD Vance's vacation in the Cotswolds and his meeting with Britain's top Tory, Robert Jenrick. Kemi Badenoch apparently too busy to see the second most powerful man in the world. You know, Kemi, change your diary. He's probably going to be the next president. You know, probably not much is more important than getting to see JD Vance while you can. And yet, you send Robert Jenrick, who wants your job. Are you sure you're up to this? 03444991000. And finally, I'll look forward to Friday's Alaskan summit as Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin meet to bring peace to Ukraine. In Donald's dreams. Good luck with that. All that and so much more, so don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Wednesday night together. And it being Wednesday, I'm very pleased to introduce to the show our regular Talk's excellent international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Hi, Isabel.
Hi, well, I just discovered to my surprise that Kemi Badenoch was actually on the Isle of Wight yesterday, just along the beach from where I am. But she came without any kind of attention. No one seemed to notice. It was all very low key. I mean, maybe that's why she can't make it to the Cotswolds to see JD Vance. I don't know.
It's the second most powerful man in the world who's probably going to be the next president of the United States. And the Tory leader wants to go to the seaside, so she can't see him. I mean, if that's what was her priority, going to the Isle of Wight, I mean, no offence, Kemi, but you need to get your act together. You really do. And what did you do? What happened? Who went in your stead? Robert Jenrick, who just might have eyes on your job. Honestly, she's not up to this stuff. She really isn't. But anyway, let's get cracking. Well, first of all, as I said in my intro, my monologue, Isabel, I think this is a disgrace, and it's just exactly how this country tends to roll, how the establishment rolls, how the authorities roll, how politicians' role. So, as I said, basically, because of the soaring rates of sex crimes around the country, but specifically the worrying rising rate of at least alleged sex crimes among asylum seekers, the people of this country, you know, in these protests have been saying, listen, when somebody gets charged with rape, or sexual assault, or any serious crime, violence, drug dealing, whatever, we have a right to know about their background. We have a right to know their ethnicity, their asylum status. Those factors could not possibly affect anybody's trial. So none of that claptrap about, oh, we can't prejudice a trial. That's nonsense, because ethnicity, asylum status will come out in the first 5 seconds of a trial. So it doesn't make any difference. So you can't use that as an excuse. So the people say, we demand to know this. We have a right to know this. This is a Western democracy, you know, transparency. The Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, and the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, both saying, do you know what, you're absolutely right. People do have the right to know this. Yes, we'll sort this out. So you think, good. So far, so good, really good. Then we find out that police have received guidance, and the guidance says that from now on, police in some cases will reveal if some asylum seekers are indeed asylum seekers or foreign nationals or migrants. In some cases, but only if the police think that not disclosing that information might cause the kind of unrest that we saw last summer around the country, but specifically in Southport when the authorities lied about Axel Rudakabana. So in some cases, if they think that if the public don't know, they might riot or something, they might confide in us that the guy down the road accused of a serious rape is an asylum seeker. But apart from that, they will make the decisions. And I'll tell you the decision they'll make in 99.9% of the cases, it will be don't tell the public. So this has achieved nothing. This is a disgrace, to be honest with you.
Well, as you would say, Kev, isn't that special? Isn't that special? I would go further even than you're suggesting there. You're saying that, and the proposal was just relating to the serious crimes, you know, those on the higher end of the scale and sexual assaults and so on. I think all crimes should be recorded according to immigration and asylum status, actually. I mean, I do think that nationality is very interesting, but there needs to be very, very clear statistics collected on immigration status as well. You know, not just whether someone's an asylum seeker, but if they are a refugee, in other words, they've been granted a right to remain. How long have they been in this country? How long since they were granted their right to remain? All of this is to do with building up a picture so that we know what it is we're doing in our country. When we import all these people, let them in, is it actually making a big difference to rates of crime in our country or not? Maybe it isn't. I happen to be pretty sure it is. But if it isn't, then there's nothing to hide, really, is there? Let's get the figures out there. And there is no way that a policy that allows police forces routinely to do the opposite of this, in other words, not to ask or at least not to record and publish the data, is going to satisfy the public demand. I just don't think this is going to cut it, not even slightly.
Yeah, this is pathetic. This is pathetic. The advice has come down from the National Police Chiefs Council. And it goes nowhere near what we have a right to know. As I say, this feeds it. Don't forget, what was it, a couple of weeks ago, two Afghani migrants, asylum seekers, were involved. One was charged with the rape of a 12-year-old girl, the other one charged with assisting in that rape. So two Afghani asylum seekers charged with this very serious rape. The police didn't tell the local community, who, in the manner of these things, people aren't stupid. They tend to find these things out. And then you get double trouble, because they go, oh my God, we got foreigners in our midst allegedly committing rape, and the bloody police tried to keep it a secret from us. So they get furious on two levels. When the Warwickshire police were challenged on this, why didn't you tell the people they were asylum seekers? They said, well, we didn't do so because that's in line with national policy. So the national policy remains that we do not get told. So nothing has changed, except that the police have said, well, in certain circumstances, if we're a bit worried that keeping secrets might cause unrest, then we might decide to cut you into the picture. Well, I think the police should be completely excluded from this process. It should not be their decision. We should have a system whereby, as you say, automatically, in all cases when people are charged, it doesn't have to be a sex crime, all crimes, we should know the ethnicity and the asylum status of them. This information will not affect their trial. This is a matter of transparency, and I would suggest public safety. And we cannot let the Rozzers make these decisions. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, guidelines aren't good enough here, and a case-by-case basis just isn't going to be good enough either. And I think we know what it'll result in. It'll result in the absolute minimum application of common sense. And already, you know, the fear of crime committed by certain communities may well actually outweigh the reality of that crime. But because we're not routinely told, people are able to inflate in their own minds what may or may not be the level of risk. So I was concerned tonight to hear that there are discussions on various social media platforms, Facebook groups and so on in one part of the UK between mothers saying, actually, I'm not going to let my kids go to school because there's a migrant hotel not too far at all from the parliament grounds. Now, I don't think the UK needs any more reasons for children not to be showing up at school as they ought to be. We already have a massive truancy problem. It's a throwback still, can you believe it, to COVID, when the government put out the message that going to school was optional. And it's been a problem ever since.
Yeah.
And now we're going to have people who are using this as an excuse not to send their little ones to school. That's what I'm hearing tonight. And you can just imagine this happening, these conversations taking place. And this is what happens when people are kept in the dark about the real level of threat in their communities. And I'm afraid in some cases, keeping them in the dark is because that real level of threat is actually quite significant.
And by the way, you know what we're talking about here. As a matter of interest, another migrant in Epping has today been charged with alleged sexual assault, this time of a man. So the community in Epping, obviously for something like 3.5 weeks now, have been very upset because an asylum seeker at the Bell Hotel was charged with sexually assaulting a young girl. I think she was 14. And now another migrant at that hotel has been charged as well in Epping. So you can see the problems here. If people, the real problem is that more and more asylum seekers are being charged with serious crimes. You have to be careful because of our glacially slow justice system. People are getting charged, they probably won't end up in court for 2 years. That's about how long it takes. But we've got hundreds and hundreds of asylum seekers all over the country charged with hundreds of very serious crimes, many of them sexual, not only on women but also on children. We have a rising problem here, and if the authorities and the police and old Bill basically have decided that we'll continue to keep the British public, the great British public, in the dark about this, it is not going to end well. When are these coppers, when are our politicians, our government going to learn that keeping secrets from us is not a good idea?
Well, maybe it's going to take 2 or 3 more horrendous things to happen. I really hope not. But, you know, now this is a question I'm reflecting on all the time. How does this end? What does it take for this government to understand what the people, British people, want, and to understand that they, the government, are not necessarily an awful lot cleverer than the rest of us? There's a reason we want this kind of information. And sort of everywhere I go now, I'm hearing conversations about how does this play out? You know, how can we go on like this for several more years? You know, today's headlines, and I'm sure we'll come to this, across the national media, but particularly in the kind of newspapers, including our own, that all governments really worry about, are absolutely devastating for Keir Starmer and his crew, because they just keep on messing it all up.
I tell you, Isabel, you know, you look at it, it's not just the migrant crisis, the asylum seeker hotel crisis, you look at the economy, you look at crime. This government seems to be assailed from all angles by intractable crises. We seem to have sort of reached ground zero of utter governmental chaos and national chaos. This lot aren't up to the job, are they?
No, I mean, it's everything. You know, they will trumpet slightly falling NHS waiting lists. But then I was very struck by a column in one of the newspapers today, a female columnist who had broken her ankle and had an utterly hellish time in accident and emergency. And we all know how awful it is having to go to accident and emergency. It's why you kind of try to avoid it at all costs. And she just said, you know, I was treated as if I was a total inconvenience, and there was no kindness, you know, no compassion, no humanity. It was quite a shocking read, and yet at the same time it wasn't shocking because we all know that this is the worst of the NHS. Of course, there are amazing examples of the best of it, but that isn't good enough. It shouldn't be a kind of, well, might I get the worst today or might I get the best?
Yeah, it was
Labour
Sarah
can't
Vine, wasn't it?
deliver on that, yeah, if Labour can't deliver on that, what is the point of them? I don't know.
It's a good question. It was a Sarah Vine, wasn't it? Saying, essentially saying, never mind about my broken ankle. What about the broken NHS? It was a powerful piece and a window into our disintegrating health system, which is disintegrating along with so much of the rest of the country. Next up, Isabel, we're going to talk about this incredible video that a migrant made of how to break into Britain, how to hitch a ride on a dinghy, and how to take this country for a ride. That next, stay tuned.
Forest has actually already got 2 hotels within the district, so we've argued quite strongly that we've got more than our fair share, and we're having to pay the burden for this illegal immigration crisis. So it may be that the government move them elsewhere, and I'd be sorry for whatever community they move to, and obviously the government need to come up with a more efficient and effective solution to dealing with this crisis and really get a grip. But ultimately, as a council, it's our duty to stand up for our community. The hotel is completely untenable.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Isabel, let's have a look at this video. It's on the front page of The Sun today. A good bit of work by them. And this is a footage or a live stream filmed by a migrant calling himself Alexandra 420. Catchy name. Basically filmed himself coming across in a dinghy, and now he is ensconced in a very comfortable hotel near Heathrow Airport, and very happy he is with that too. He said this is the best place that we're paying for, of course. Well, let's have a look at the video first.
Welcome to London. Sare dunya barbadi hai.
An illegal migrant racked up nearly 1 million views online with a step-by-step guide to crossing the channel on a small boat. A Sun probe has uncovered a series of videos that shows the internet influencer boasting from a 4-star asylum hotel that it was his dream to come to the UK. Last night, Nigel Farage called the video an advert for crossing the channel. The man, known as Alexandra 420 online, has 70,000 fans and detailed his perilous dinghy crossing in 8 different viral clips on TikTok. It's thought that the internet star, said to be from Afghanistan, crossed alongside 434 others on Saturday after leaving Calais in northern France.
Thomas Godfrey, good work by him, Sun reporter there, all over the front page. So this is just an embarrassment to this country, isn't it? He said, tell all your friends to come. This is the best place. And there he is in a 4-star hotel. Earlier, apparently, on the dinghy, live streamed himself coming across the channel. All happy party taunts of the TikTok migrant. There you go. He's got 70,000 followers on TikTok, and he's encouraging all his mates from Afghanistan and all around the world to come and join him in the land of plenty, the promised land, Britain. This is an embarrassment. This is ridiculous, isn't it?
Well, this leads on really nicely, doesn't it, from the work you and I did on Monday, exposing it from the people smugglers' point of view, where they're advertising quite shamelessly, quite brazenly, their taxi service across the channel and special deals that you can get if you don't have the money or the passport or anything else, frankly, to your name. And now we see it from the TikToker's point of view, the passenger point of view. We actually did a story a bit like this a couple of years ago where we showed a similar character inside a migrant hotel in Derby, chucking piles of cash all around him, presumably either forged notes or counterfeit notes, bank notes, or money that he was making working on the black market. And these people are making a mockery of us. They really are. And they're basically laughing at the British taxpayer, or at least they would be if they paused to give any thought as to who is paying for their luxury new lifestyle. And that guy, I mean, frankly, should be instantly deported. I think anyone who makes these sorts of social media posts, clearly encouraging others to break the law, that should be an instant disqualification for remaining in this country. Instead, all that's been done so far is his TikTok account has been disabled. Well, whoopee-doo. I'd like to see him straight back on a boat from whence he came.
There he is on the on his small boat making his way across. An embarrassment, a humiliation for this country. Meanwhile, of course, official figures now reveal that the number of migrants who've crossed the channel illegally and broken into this country since Keir Starmer took the helm of the good ship Britain is 50,271. 50,271. In the past week, we are now 1 week on from one in, one out, my new deterrent. We discussed this yesterday. It is not a deterrent. It has not deterred anyone. This has been almost a record week. Something like 2,200 migrants have come over since Keir brought in his amazing new swap a foreigner deterrent. So that's not working. Smash the gangs. Incredibly, yesterday, Downing Street announced that they rejected the notion that smash the gangs had failed as a strategy. I'd hate to see their definition of failure or success if they think this is not a failure. I mean, what on earth are they talking about? 1 year and 1 month, the best part of 14 months into Labour's regime, and no gang smashed. They're coming across at a record rate, 1 every 11 minutes. It works out since Labour came in, and this is what infuriated me. These people, these politicians, I mean, they never know when to stop playing their silly little Westminster games, do they? This is a national crisis. This is a national emergency. As we discussed earlier, women are getting raped, children are getting raped. We have thousands and thousands of lawless young men in our midst about whom we know nothing. And still they come, and we have a government that can't do anything about it. Baroness, or whatever she calls herself now, that half-wit former Home Secretary, Jackie Smith, announces today it's not Labour's fault, it's the Tories. For God's sake,
I mean, that just isn't going to fly as an excuse anymore. I think it might have worked as a bit of an excuse for the first month, maybe, but even that I'm struggling to accept, because there were many, many years in which the Labour Party, as an opposition, had to work out how it was going to deal with this and do so effectively from day one. They could have struck an immediate different tone from the moment that Keir Starmer took office. They could have made it absolutely clear that they acknowledged that the Conservatives had manifestly failed on this. They didn't see the Rwanda scheme as the answer, but instead they were going to do X, Y, Z. Please come up with anything that didn't include or mainly focus on smashing the vile gangs, because that was never
The evil people smugglers. Yes, indeed. And by the way, you, I think you were on Twitter today, weren't you, pointing out to Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, who's turned into the Tories' resident action man, keeps going on these missions to prove, how dynamic he is in getting to grips with the migrant crisis. Didn't he claim to have uncovered something that you uncovered? Tell us about that.
I mean, a month after everybody else was going to Calais, and covering these kind of stories, the Tory party finally stirs itself into action, and Chris Philp, this opposition spokesman on Home Affairs, trots over to Calais and then acts as if he's got some great revelation, saying that the French police are helping escort migrants onto buses, which then drop the migrants off.
Well, that was your story, wasn't it? Exactly.
It's precisely what we revealed here on Talk about 3 weeks ago. So that was our exclusive. It was yours, Kev. It was mine, Kev. It was Nicholas Lissack and his colleague who went out to Calais and did the hard yards on that story. You know what? Let Chris Philp have his little moment. If anything, that just shows that he fails to do his research properly. We all know the number one thing you do when you think you've got a revelation is you do a quick Google to see if anyone else has run the story. This lot, they're so incompetent that he didn't even do his basic due diligence to find out that story is well in the public domain already.
Before we go to break, exactly right, couldn't agree with you more. Get your own stories, Philp. And by the way, the other thing, you're right. I mean, when I'm angry about Jackie Smith, it's not that the Tories shouldn't shoulder huge amounts of the blame for this chaos, including Chris Philp. But 1 year, or the getting on for 14 months after these people came into power, you can't keep saying it's the Tories' fault. Labour, no mean feat. You've got to hand it to them. They took a terrible, terrible migrant crisis situation, and they've succeeded in making it a lot worse, mainly by ditching all deterrents. Let's quickly have a look and a listen at Baroness Jackie Smith.
This is a problem that has, up to this point, we haven't managed to tackle in terms of the numbers who are coming here. But it is a completely legitimate claim to say that's because what is happening is the result of the last government that chose to focus on gimmicks through the Rwanda scheme that returned 4 volunteers. And
but it hadn't started. The Rwanda scheme hadn't started, but...
Well, it had, and it returned 4 people, and it cost £750 million. And what the last government hadn't done was to take the sort of powers that we've taken to get to the criminals who are responsible for this. You're right, internationally, which is why, as well, we've been willing to work with the French, with the Germans in a way that the last government wasn't willing or wasn't able.
Wrong, Jackie. The Rwanda scheme had not started. Your idiot boss flushed that scheme down the drain and thereby cost British taxpayers more than £700 million in an act of political immaturity. It really was impetuous and ridiculous. You want gimmicks? It was Keir Starmer jettisoning the Rwanda scheme before it even began. It's so annoying. Jackie Smith.
Just awful. Any government that wants to oust Labour, any future government, just needs to play that on a loop. People hate that kind of thing. They absolutely hate it. How about just being honest and saying, we've messed this up so far and we've really got to come up with something better?
Baroness Jackie Smith, still crazy after all these years. Let's go to break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, who's got some really important work to do. We're going to talk about that next. Stay tuned.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakshott. Isabel, I should just confide in you. Basically, we've got an amber heat alert in the studio. The air conditioning's gone wrong once again. And luckily, I've got the high-tech equipment. My top team have provided me with some kind of respite from this intense heat. So here it is.
No, I was expecting that.
It's finally a decent use for the Financial Times. But anyway, it's pretty hot in here, folks. Now, listen, let's talk about Bridget Phillipson, you know, the cabinet, even among the class warriors of the cabinet, the Labour cabinet. Miss Phillipson takes the biscuit. She seriously is at war with everyone who's not working class. And one of those Geordies made good. Went to Oxford, you know. Anyway, she's really dealing with some important issues. She has confirmed that teachers should have the right, from now on, will have the right to ask pupils not to, if they choose to be gender neutral. They should have the right to ask pupils not to call them, not to address them as Mr., Miss or Mrs, but as MX, MX. So, I've got two questions about this. One is, how the hell do you pronounce MX? Yeah, morning, Mux. Excuse me, Mux. Excuse me, Mux. Mux, Mux. I mean, it's that in itself is ridiculous. But
sounds like a dog, doesn't it?
Yeah. on a more serious basis, this is the enshrining of a contested ideology.
Yes.
This is teachers imposing on children a scientific pretense. It is not possible to be gender neutral. That is a scientific lie. So, first of all, I would say that generally this would confuse children and should be rejected right off the bat. Should be rejected. Yeah. But secondly, this should be stopped because it is effectively teaching kids a lie. That you can be gender neutral. You can pretend to be gender neutral if you want, but you can't actually be gender neutral. So this is more than just stupid and ridiculous, using a ridiculous term like MUX. It is the imposition of unscientific claptrap lies on children, and that should not be allowed.
I actually feel that it may make life worse for those teachers that insist on being called MUX, because kids have a sense of humour, don't they? And I think they'll just take the mickey out of this. You know, I think most children are actually instinctively not in any doubt that there are males and females, and actually anything in between is largely a fiction when it comes to the biological situation. So I think most kids will see through this. They will tease and make their own fun of it, and actually it may make the situation worse for the teacher concerned. It certainly shouldn't be institutionalized, and I think it does beg the question how far we've actually come post that Supreme Court ruling that was so seminal. You know, people like you and I don't really think it was necessary for the Supreme Court to spend not hours, actually probably years agonizing over that ruling. But there was a lot of hope in the wake of that it would actually settle a whole number of these matters. And yet here we are. We've got these zealots in government and through the education system, I'm afraid, continuing to peddle this type of unhealthy propaganda. And it is the kids who are getting similarly confusing messages at home who will, as it were, suffer as a result of this in school. You know, I think parents can do a pretty good job of telling their children this stuff's nonsense, but there are families and settings where they do push this stuff. And if they're also getting it at school, then we're going to have, you know, very different type of children growing up there.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got kids and their parents are sensible and say this is all claptrap, kids, you know, be sceptical about all this gender identity stuff, which is what proper parents probably should tell their kids. That's great. Then the kids go to school and they've got to call Sir or Miss Mooks, and they have enshrined to them, you know, the principle of gender neutrality. Well, that isn't a fact. That is not a fact. And the women's groups in particular, feminist groups, are saying that children should only be taught the fact of biological sex, a fact that was, by the way, you know, ruled to be the law by the Supreme Court only a couple of months ago. So you know, indulging in all this gender identity stuff, gender neutrality stuff, is arguably against the law, but it's not a biological fact. So I just think it's extraordinary that Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, thinks it's okay for teachers to impose their own dubious ideologies on children. Look, as far as I'm concerned, if you want to go around saying you're gender neutral or whatever the hell you want to say you are, but knock yourself out, no problem. You know, I won't take you seriously, but it's up to you. But you shouldn't be imposing this on kids because they're in their formative years. This will change their brains. This will change their minds. You know, it's actually quite worrying.
As I say, I think it's sort of, I'm not saying I condone it as awful, but I'm less worried for children from families where the parents do just say, look, this is the situation, and just, you know, treat everything else as a bit of a joke. At least be respectful, but don't let it, you know, confuse you in any way that black is white and white is black and so on. It's the children who come from settings in which the parents are also peddling this stuff that I think are ones we should worry about, because they're not getting any perspective which is based in reality. I think that the thing here is much broader. You know, the extent of this woke ideology all through the education system in the UK really, really troubles me. You know, the absolute championing of the pride events, the whole LGBTQIA agenda, all of that really does concern me in schools.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's sort of wokery gone mad. We've got to be careful here. Just before we go to break, just going off-piste for a second, I'm going to cover this story later on, but I want to get your take on it. It's this bizarre business of David Lammy going fishing with J.D. Vance at Chevening, the official residence of the Foreign Secretary. Is it down in Kent, am I right? Anyway, it's a beautiful, big, imposing, stately home with a massive Great Lake in the middle of it. Anyway, so he took J.D. Vance and J.D. Vance's kids fishing. J.D. stayed at Chevening for a couple of nights with the Foreign Secretary. They got on rather well, which I think is a good thing for the country. I'm glad about that. So they go fishing, and they put some pictures up of both of them, you know, like Huckleberry Finn or something, just standing there fishing, laughing away. Anyway, today David Lammy has emerged that he's written to the Environment Agency to apologise because he didn't have a fishing licence. And apparently both he and J.D. Vance, for fishing in the lake, there they are, in the lake at they face £2,500 fines each.
I love this story. What a great story. The pictures are fantastic, aren't they? Yeah. These are brilliant pictures. This is just brilliant. I mean, David Lammy's always getting himself into a pickle, isn't he? Do you remember that taxi story?
Oh God, yeah, the 6-hour taxi drive. Yes.
Apparently failed to pay the fare, or I think he was probably totally ripped off by some chancer. But anyway, look, I'm not a fan of David Lammy's policies, but I think those pictures are brilliant. You know, on this occasion, who really cares about the damn fishing licence? You know, come on.
Oh no, I'm not sort of saying this is a disgrace. You didn't have a fishing licence. No, I mean it's just ridiculous. It's just that you couldn't make this story up.
It's so British, isn't it? It's so,
it is.
Oh, you didn't have a licence. Someone's twitched their curtains and told off.
I hope he does. I hope neither of them do get fined. It's just a bit ridiculous. And by the way, FYI, David Lammy didn't catch any fish, but JD Vance and his kids did.
Well, I think that says everything you need to know about the fortunes of this Labour government.
Yeah, well, since we're covering some really rather amusing stories this evening, when we come back after this break, we're going to cover another one that sort of made me laugh. I mean, it's got a serious element to it, but it's all about Surrey Constabulary and their war on crime. It's a very important story, folks. You better stay tuned for it.
There's no discernible plan here. If they'd come in on day one and had a plan, you would grant them a bit of time to allow the plan to bed in, right? You don't expect miracle results on day one, but I can't discern what the plan is. And it does seem like the UK's business model at the moment is to chase out all of our millionaires and billionaires, wave them goodbye as they go abroad, and welcome in vast numbers of people who aren't typically particularly productive in the economy and are often on welfare. That is the UK business model.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's going to work out. Yeah, I'm not sure it's going to work out well for us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Isabel, our technical operator, Dave, has just informed me that he hopes that both David Lammy and JD Vance, in terms of their fishing problems, their fishing licence problems, get let off the hook. There you go. Thank you. Thank you, Dave. Right, let's talk about Surrey Police. They've set up the Jog Squad. Undercover, I mean, this is letting you know that never let it be said that the police's war on crime doesn't continue vigilantly apace. The Surrey Constabulary has set up the Jog Squad, a team of undercover female officers posing as joggers, going out jogging in order to catch male catcallers.
Right.
Now, I don't want to, no one condones catcalling. It can make women certainly feel uncomfortable and sometimes feel threatened. So I'm not trying to undermine suggestions that catcalling isn't sort of a problem. Of course, it would be better if it didn't happen, and if the police can stop it, then fine. But this is a jog squad. These people this is a proper squad where women are dressing as joggers. We're WPCs, female coppers, dressing as joggers, and then going out in order to catch males who sort of shout at them and wolf whistle and all that. Inspector John Vale, Surrey's Violence Against Women and Girls Safer Spaces lead. I'll say that again. This is Inspector John Vale. He is Surrey's Violence Against Women and Girls Safer Spaces lead. Bit sexist, isn't it? Shouldn't that be a female officer? Anyway, it's a bloke. He said that catcalling was far too common. And then he went on to say that while he accepted that this kind of behaviour, men catcalling, is not necessarily criminal, it can escalate to more serious sexual offending. Well, that's just a theory. In the meantime, John Vale and his mates are spending taxpayers' money getting WPCs to dress up as joggers to catch men who wolf whistle at them. Now, good, catcalling is bad. I wish it would end. But surely there is a better way of spending taxpayers' money when it comes to tackling crime, and I mean serious crime. Serious rates of crime all over the country are rocketing, the rates of conviction are plummeting, and Surrey police have set up the Jog Squad. What the hell is going on?
I would much rather what they'd set up is some officers going around talking on their mobile phones to catch people that are mugging citizens for their smartphones and other devices. You know, let's try and tackle the real stuff rather than, as our headline says, hunt pre-crimes. You know, it's hardly the worst of offences anyway, is it? I mean, it's annoying. It's a bit irritating. Actually, you know, things like building sites have changed a lot, not just because I'm getting older and don't get the catcalls so much these days, but because of a cultural change. You know, in the construction industry in particular, they now make a big point of having expected standards of behaviour and so on. So I think that all this has changed a lot anyway. I'm sure younger women still find it a real irritation and annoying and so on. But is it a good use of police time? Of course it isn't. You know, just an absurd use of this. And I mean, I'd love to see how they're doing this. I mean, are these women wearing particularly skimpy shorts to try to get higher rates of encounters?
Well, there's a story in the Times. No, not particularly. You know, no more than any other female jogglers. You know, quite tight outfits and all that. I suppose they look quite sort of fetching. No more than any other woman. So no, I don't think they've gone out of their way to sort of dress in a particularly sexual jogging way. But as the Free Speech Union said, this is actually, there is a sinister side to this, because what this guy, John Vale, Surrey's, I love his job. What's your job? I am Surrey's Violence Against Women and Girls Safer Spaces lead. That's his job. Anyway, what the Free Speech Union are saying is this is a sort of bizarre social experiment investigating pre-crimes, because what he's worried about is not so much the catcalling, but what he thinks catcalling leads to. When I was at university, I used to work on building sites, and I used to work among a lot of guys who spent most of the day, every time a girl walked past, wolf whistling, "Oi, darling, go on, get them off," and all this kind of stuff. You know, I didn't approve of that, middle-class lad amongst all of that stuff, but I didn't particularly mind it. But the idea that those guys, you know, who were decent blokes, that this would lead to them becoming rapists or something
Ridiculous.
like that, absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense.
Complete and utter nonsense. I mean, there's so much of this stuff from the police, though, isn't there? This kind of well-intentioned but totally misguided initiatives which are so out of step with what the public are actually crying out for, which is for them to tackle the real crimes. I mean, I'm actually really in favour of undercover policing insofar as it can help us, lead us to actual criminals and make the streets safer places. And they should be, I mean, how about, for example, if they're going to, if we're going to adopt this strategy of pre-crimes or just putting people out there, why do the police never stop any of the masked up migrants on bikes doing the fast food deliveries? I mean, that's an obvious target. The police never randomly stop those people and ask whether they have the right to be working. You know, there's so many things they could be doing. What about tackling people who are openly smoking drugs on the street? And on and on and on we go. But no, we're going to have a Jog Squad going around tackling catcalls. I reckon they'll hardly get any.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to Inspector John Vale, Surrey's Violence Against Women and Girls Safer Spaces lead. You know, I don't know Inspector Vale, but I'm just kind of thinking he needs to get a life, this guy.
He's not clues, is he?
This is what he said. He said that, you know, catcalling, particularly for women joggers, is far too common. He said, so listen to this. One of our officers was honked at within 10 minutes. Don't laugh. One of our officers was honked at within 10 minutes. Then another vehicle slowed down, beeping and making gestures just 30 seconds later. That's how frequent it is. Someone slowing down, staring, shouting, even if it's not always criminal, it can have a huge impact on people's everyday lives and stops women from doing something as simple as going for a run. Is that person going to escalate? Are they a sexual offender? We want to manage that risk early. Well, that last paragraph, that last statement, I think is sinister and worrying. The rest of it is right out of a Carry On film. It's just absurd comedy. What on earth is, oh, somebody wolf whistled me today. It had a huge impact on my everyday life. I mean, come on.
Yeah, there's a really pretty simple way of dealing with this, and that is to put earphones in, put sunglasses on, put your shades on, and just push on as a runner. And focus on the sport that you're doing. I'm not saying it's nice. I'm not saying it's not something we'd all rather didn't happen. But there's no justification for allocating police resources to it. What are they then going to do? So the joggers are then going to take the car registration, are they, of some blokes that are just sort of leering out of the window? Are they then going to track those men down to their homes and send, 3 police cars and some Alsatians to go and tackle this pre-criminal? I mean, that is actually what they will plan to do. And it's just such a completely ludicrous use of resources.
Yeah, one of the undercover joggers, PC Abby Haywood, she said this behaviour is either a precursor to something more serious. I don't think there's any evidence of this at all, by the way. There's no evidence that someone who wolf whistles or cat calls women is a potential rapist. I think they're just making this up as they go along. Anyway, she says this behaviour is either a precursor to something more serious or it's ignorance. All right, you could say that, fair enough. And then she says, and it's fixable. How?
Well, let's see. We can put in some FOIs after a few months to find out how many cat callers they reprimanded, how many police cars were sent to the properties of cat callers, and what is the outcome of this? Will these be recorded as non-hate crime?
Yeah, exactly. That's the worst thing. They're saying it's not necessarily criminal. Well, if it's not criminal, what's it got to do with the police? Isabel, got to go, but thank you very much for another excellent hour and another excellent week. We'll talk again next week. Isabel Oakeshott there, our international editor. Coming up next, Rupert Lowe, the former Reform UK, now the redoubtable independent MP for Great Yarmouth. We're going to put the world to rights. We're going to talk about the migrant crisis. We're going to talk about the rape crisis. We're going to talk about the crisis in this country. A lot to get through with Rupert. So he is a man of forthright views, always good to talk to. So stay tuned. Rupert Lowe next. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. In about half an hour, I'll be taking your calls. 03444991000. We need to talk about the migrant crisis. I think we need to talk about the escalating sex crime crisis. And we ought to talk about perhaps whether or not pupils should be allowed to call their teachers mooks or misses or ms. That kind of nonsense. Why is the Education Secretary wasting her time with this unscientific claptrap? All of those issues or anything else you want to call me about, give me a ring. 0344 499 1000. Do Surrey Police really need a jog squad, undercover female officers dressed as joggers trying to catch catcallers? Catcalling is not an offence, so why are they doing it? Surrey Police seem to believe that is a gateway offence to rape or something. There's no evidence of that. What is that? It's pre-crime. It's nonsense. 0344 499 1000. Also, later in the hour, we're going to talk about David Lammy again. We've already discussed his fishing licence problem. We'll bring that topic up again. Find out whether or not he's going to get off the hook or whether he'll have to pay a £2,500 fine for not having a licence fishing in his own lake at Chevening. Presumably JD Vance, who joined him on that angling trip, will also be in line for a £2,500 fine, which might do no end of harm to Anglo-American operations. But more to the point, did you know that on July the 4th, bearing in mind Labour have had a big crackdown on hospitality spending, that David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, threw a party, a Foreign Office party, for the great and the good. July the 1st, it was at Lancaster House, summer reception it was called. Guess how much it cost? £50,000, just over 49,000 to be fair, £49,069.88. So basically, David Lammy cracked down on hospitality on July the 1st, spent £50,000 of your money and my money, taxpayers' money, on a bloody party. 0344 499 1000. We'll talk about that later in the hour. But for the next 30 minutes or so, let's go straight over to my next guest. Really pleased he could join us. He is the independent MP for Great Yarmouth, Rupert Lowe. Welcome, Rupert.
Evening, Kevin. How are you?
I'm very, very well. Now, you've been tweeting today, which is handy because it's given me a couple of topics that I can discuss with you, and they're important topics. First of all, you tweeted, of course there are British rapists. Obviously we know that. Sadly, they are our problem. They are scumbags and they should be treated as such, with an incredibly harsh sentence. We all would agree with that. But you go on to say that the existence of British rapists does not mean that we have to continue importing thousands and thousands of foreign rapists. And what we're talking about here is the worrying rise in the hundreds of charges being levelled against criminal charges, serious criminal charges against asylum seekers living in these asylum seeker hotels and sometime in these houses of multiple occupancy, our asylum seekers. More and more of them are being charged with serious crimes, and more of them are being charged, even more worryingly, with sex crimes, with rape and sexual assault. And by the way, it's not only women. There's an alarming number of sex crimes against children are being levelled against, charges levelled against asylum seekers. We have to be careful with this charges business because they get arrested, they get accused of these offences, then they get charged, and with our glacial justice system, they probably won't be in court for at least 18 months, maybe 2 years. But there's a clear picture emerging. We have for many years now been importing thousands and thousands and thousands of young men of sexually active age, about whom we know nothing. We let them come across the channel, and basically we let them into the country. We put them up in these places all around the land, and guess what? Some of them are committing horrific rapes and sexual assaults, sometimes paedophile assaults. And this is a massive problem, isn't it?
Well, I feel very strongly about it, Kevin, as you can tell from the tweets we put out. I mean, obviously, illegal migration is a problem. And as we know, that's huge under Keir Starmer, despite the fact that he's constantly said he'll stop the boats or smash the gangs, I think is his favourite sort of expression, which he clearly hasn't done. So illegal migration, and if you look at pictures of people coming to the country every day, it's not refugees, it's not women and men with their families, it's young fighting age men who are not respectful of our extremely high trust society. They come from a very different culture and they have a very different view of women. So it's not surprising that we have a problem with the illegal migrants, as you quite rightly say. They are perpetrating crimes, and we've got those details which we publish, to a far higher extent than the domestic population. Now, legal migration is equally a problem because I think the government, the state, is not capable of properly, if you like, filtering those people who are going to make a contribution to our society from those who aren't. And as a result of that, we end up again with more of the same. The liberal elite likes to say, well, of course, the majority of rapes are perpetrated by white people, not by any other form of illegal or legal migrant. Well, that may be true, but then we are a majority white population still, so that's hardly surprising. But as a percentage of those people who come into the country, it's far higher. The incidence of the Pakistani rape gangs, which we're, as you know, analysing through our rape gang inquiry, which 20,000 people have very generously donated over £600,000 to. And we're about to produce a report to show that this has been happening in over 100 towns and cities across the UK. So this is systemic. This is going right to the heart of Britain. It's been going there really since the early 2000s. And the staggering thing is that an establishment that appears to crack down on any form of Lucy Connolly-like misguided social media posting has turned a blind eye to this mass rape and its link to drugs and its link to crime. It's turned a blind eye to it because it fears being called racist and because it fears its post-war multicultural experiment has failed or is failing. And it goes everywhere. It's not just one part of the establishment, it's every part of the establishment. And I think they know it's a systemic failure. I think they know that if they link the police databases, they will find the pattern, they will find the link to county lines drugs, they'll find the link to organised crime. But I think there's no appetite to actually what I would call enforce the law without fear or favour, because I think it's almost got too big. Mm-hmm. So as a result of that, what they have to do is clamp down on anybody who points out the sort of erroneous ways that have been allowed to take place for really, I mean, honestly, Kevin, far too long.
Here's something, Rupert, that we have to take very seriously. This is a fact. This is a statistical fact. And these are the kind of slices of information that only now are British people being allowed to have access to. It is this. This is a fact. UK-based foreign nationals living in this country are, listen to this, 70% more likely to be convicted of sex crimes than indigenous British citizens. Now, you know, we ought to take that statistic alone extremely seriously. But judging by our approach to the migrant crisis, the fact that we continue to just let unknown young men from very different cultures into the country, we're not taking this statistic seriously, are we?
No, we're not. And I think the Emily Maitlisses of this world, as I said, the sort of liberals who they do as I say, not as I do merchants, because most of them send their children to public school and they live in very smart parts of London, and they certainly don't have any of these people being settled anywhere near their children's schools, and they don't have to suffer the damage which is happening across the UK to the fabric of our society. So, I mean, look, there's a very, what I call, malign attitude towards this. And I think we've played our part both in exposing the extent of it in terms of how common it is amongst a lot of the people who've come into the country. But equally, I think we're putting pressure on the government to start collecting more data, which they haven't been doing. And in Parliament, I think I played my part without being in any way big-headed in moving the Overton window in terms of my speech in January about the Pakistani Muslim rape gangs, which brought tears to one Labour MP's eyes. But the fact is, it's the truth. And in Parliament, one should be able to speak the truth. After all, if you can't speak the truth in Parliament, where can you speak the truth, Kevin? And that's the problem. I think Parliament has lost sight of the truth. It's been hollowed out. It's no longer what it should be under the British Constitution. And we are run by a bunch of woke permanent secretaries who are not elected and who don't necessarily share the same view of Britain as the majority of what I call decent, sensible, tax-paying, honest Middle England.
And, you know, for your information, I don't know if you've heard this already, but just to sort of underline the nature of the problem that we've got, the escalating problem that we've got going on here. Today, another asylum seeker, one more asylum seeker living at the Bell Hotel in Epping, has been charged with a serious sexual assault, this time of a man, actually. So a man has been seriously sexually assaulted. So, as you know, for about the past 3.5 weeks or so, the people of Epping have been protesting about this asylum seeker hotel in their midst, because a resident there about 3 weeks ago was charged with sexually assaulting a very young girl, a 14-year-old girl. So they've been furious about this. Now there's another one. Let me ask you this, Rupert. Big story today. The police have sort of announced that from now on, if they think it's necessary and if they fear that keeping this information would be might be incendiary and cause public unrest, that they may from now on release some background details about those charged with rapes and serious offences. So in other words, both the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary last week conceded that we, the British people, did have a right to know when someone is charged with rape or sexual assault or even violence offences, serious offences. We have a right to know whether or not they're asylum seekers. We have a right to know their ethnicity. The Prime Minister and the Home Secretary said this. Today, we've had a release from the police saying, yes, we are going to start to tell people this, but only in some cases and only in some high-profile cases and only in cases where we feel that if we didn't tell the public, it may cause unrest. So in other words, they're not going to give us this information. They're going to carry on not telling us that when there's a rape, that the suspect is an asylum seeker or a migrant or a foreign national. We have a right to know this, don't we? That information cannot possibly affect their trials. We should be told this, and yet we found out today that essentially in most cases we still won't be. That's wrong, isn't it?
It's totally wrong, Kevin. I mean, there should be one rule for everybody, and the rule should be total transparency. Ultimately, the British people are the boss, and the police, the civil service, and the government are the servant. They are serving the British people. The British people are the people who pay the taxes and who vote, and they should be treated properly. They should have totally transparent information on a consistent basis. The last thing we want, and this is what's happened, this is why I say Parliament's been undermined, because this nanny knows best culture, which thinks that they're going to tell us that information that they want to tell us. So they'll tell us if it's a white man who's perpetrated the crime, but they won't if it's an illegal migrant, because they're worried about what they call community stability. So no, I think it should be one rule. It's a bit like policing. Policing should be without fear or favour, and it should apply equally to everybody. And clearly, it hasn't been. And I think we're hoping to have our rape gang hearing in November. We've done an awful lot of work on it. Unlike the J report, which has cost 186 million, ours can only cost 600,000, which is what we've raised. But we're going to come up with some pretty punchy conclusions, and we're coming out with a report in the next few days which shows the extent of this issue. So I think it has to be a totally transparent state. It's like tax, Kevin. Tax should be effectively limited to the actual government expenditure should be limited to the tax stake. That way you keep the state honest. And the state's become dishonest. It's become dishonest. Yeah. I actually think the police have become dishonest. I mean, my experience with the police has not been a good one recently. I think it's quite common. I think Lucy Connolly's experience with the police is not a good one. I think, the police have become almost a dangerous arm of the state. And there's nobody now holding the police to account. Because if you have a weak front bench and you have a country that's run by the permanent secretaries, it's actually the cabal of the permanent secretaries and the Association of Chief Police Officers, ACPO, which ends up basically being in charge of policing. And I think our judiciary is now complicit. So I think there's a huge Augean Stables job to be done on the entire state. And that's why we've got Restore Britain set up, because if those people who agree with us, the only one way we're going to change this is a mass movement which morphs into complete metamorphosis of the way in which Britain is run. Because having spent a year in Parliament, I can tell you it's not working properly. It's not working in the interests of the British people. And I think we can all feel our country, which used to function unbelievably well, slipping through our fingers. And I can't appeal to people enough to say, if you agree, you must sign up and you must give the power to people who you trust to try and act as the agents for change, not in 3 or 4 years' time, Kevin. It's got to start now. I agree. Because I actually genuinely tell you, if we don't start to change it now and we don't radically change it in 29, and when I say radically change it, I think we've got to have a group of people who hold to account those people who damaged the interests of the British electorate over a very long period of time in an extremely underhand, devious and dishonest way. Yeah. And that goes really across. So the rape gang inquiry is the tip of the iceberg. I mean, that shows you, I think, how dysfunctional the state has been. But it's not just there. It's the Department of Work and Pensions handing out billions to 9 million people who are of working age who aren't working. It's the Motability scam. I mean, honestly, I could go on for hours.
I know we are in a terrible, terrible state. But the rape gang scandal is similar to what we're talking about. There's this propensity on the part of the authorities, on the part of the police, of the government, of politicians to keep the public in the dark, to keep secrets from the public, because they think we're children and we can't be trusted. And if we knew that the local rapist was an asylum seeker, that we'd all have a riot. Well, they've got to stop treating us like children, because it is not the way forward. Secrecy never works out well. Rupert, let's go to break now. When we come back, we'll talk about the epicentre of British dysfunctionalism right now, and that is, of course, the migrant crisis. That next, folks. Stay tuned.
There's no discernible plan here. If they'd come in on day one and had a plan, you would grant them a bit of time to allow the plan to bed in, right? You don't expect miracle results on day one, but I can't discern what the plan is. And it does seem like the UK's business model at the moment is to chase out all of our millionaires and billionaires, wave them goodbye as they go abroad, and welcome in vast numbers of people who aren't typically particularly productive in the economy and are often on welfare. That is the UK business model.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's going to work out. Yeah, I'm not sure it's going to work out well for us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still talking to the independent MP for Great Yarmouth, Rupert Lowe, and also the leader of the movement, not a party, the movement, the Restore Britain, which wants to, I hope, restore some kind of order to this country that seems to be falling apart at the seams, mainly because the seams in terms of our borders don't seem to be observed one bit at all. Now, you tweeted today, Rupert, again very helpfully, if I may say so, for this show. I'll say it again, legal immigration is a bigger problem than illegal immigration. Well, let's talk about legal immigration first, but I do want to talk to you about the small boat crossers as well, because that is spiralling out of control right now. It is a ludicrous situation. But you're right, we were discussing earlier about the problem of the small boat crossers, the dinghy crossers, thousands of young men breaking into this country, being allowed then to just wander around. We know nothing about them, and guess what? Some of them turn out to be sexual abusers, paedophiles and rapists. Well, you're right. You know, legal immigration is a massive problem. We are letting in something like, you know, not far off 1 million people legally every year. And by the way, we don't know much about them either. Apparently the form they have to fill in, usually, sort of says, have you ever committed a crime? You know, so they're not likely to say, yes, I have. I've committed lots of crimes. I'm actually a rapist, a convicted rapist. Would you let me in? So they have to say, did you ever commit a crime? They all say no. So we have a similar problem. We don't know anything about these people we're letting in legally. And
hey, Kevin, we're a high trust society. They're not necessarily from high trust societies. They're from autocracies where they don't have the same code within them that we have. They don't have this huge history of democratic sort of acceptance and, as I say, high trust. So they're almost, it's cultural oil and water, and you have to apply the rules that they apply to each other to them, not the rules that we apply have always applied to ourselves. So it's totally different. And you know, I am not against immigration. I'm literally pro-immigration if we are bringing in people who are going to fill skill holes in our society and who are going to make a general contribution and sign up to the way in which we live our lives and the way in which we operate our democracy. But unfortunately, this isn't the case. So these are people with a very different outlook on life. And all we're doing is ultimately creating a rod for our own back. And I just can't for the life of me understand why the people who are perpetrating this, and don't forget Boris Johnson was as big a perpetrator of this on the British people, having said he was going to reduce migration. He actually increased legal migration almost more than anybody else, started with Blair, increased with Cameron and Theresa May, despite the fact they protested they were going to reduce it on a almost a broken record-like basis. And then with Boris, it exploded. And, I think government accountability disappeared with COVID. I think COVID was a time when bad decisions were made, when the state basically ran out of control. It printed money on a completely ad-lib basis. It handed it out like confetti. And then it wondered why you get this dysfunctionality akin to a communist regime where the main, as I've said before, and I never said it on your show, but the main a quality you needed to survive within a communist environment was to be a good liar. Because the last thing you did was tell the state the truth. Because if you told the state the truth, it basically took all your money off you, and effectively reduced your standard of living. Which is why you had all these drab cities, and you went through this drab front door, and you opened up into a sort of palace inside. So everybody was living a lie, Kevin. And this is what happens when you get too much statism. You get dishonesty. You get people who are not principals, they're agents, and you end up with chaos in the end. And unfortunately, you then have to have a complete breakdown before you return to the principles of private ownership, private enterprise, and a society that actually respects each other and works together. And this is where I find the Labour government really irritates me when they talk about we're not going to tax workers. Well, Kevin, workers are a function of the companies that they work for. So if you tax the companies they work for, you are going to affect the workers. You are going to damage their interests. You know, to me, it's as plain as a pikestaff, and I just.
Well, they're going to tax workers as well. They're going to have to.
Well, workers they're suffering the consequences, Kevin. They will do. They can't fail to.
Yeah, but they're going to have to directly, raise income tax. There's no doubt about that, because they backed themselves into a financial mess. Let me just ask you though about the illegal migrant crisis. I mean, what the hell should we do? Because it's now 52,000 migrants have come across the Channel illegally since Keir Starmer took the helm of the good ship Great Britain. And in the past week, since last Wednesday, which by the way was the day that his latest great deterrent came into play, became operational, one in, one out. Well, it turns out that one out is actually over 2,000 in, none out. Something like 2,200 migrants have come in since he brought in his great new deterrent. So that has not worked. They're coming at the rate of one every 11 minutes. To say this is spiralling out of control is the understatement of the century. Starmer clearly has no idea what to do. What should he do, Rupert?
Well, you can't trust Starmer with anything, Kevin. You can't trust him with the deal he struck in the Chagos Islands, which was, in my view, treason. You can't trust him with what he's doing in Gibraltar. He'll probably do the same in the end with the Falkland Islands. He is giving away things that he shouldn't be giving away to the EU. He's a soft touch, and he's not really fit to be Prime Minister. Unfortunately, he won by default. I call it the Labour landslip election victory. And he won because...
The loveless landslide, wasn't it?
It was a landslip because he got a very low percentage of the vote, and people were so disaffected with the Tories, and quite rightly, that they had no alternative, and you can't possibly vote the Lib Dems or the Greens or anybody else anywhere near power. So the only default position was Labour, and unfortunately, the Fabian, the deeply Fabian Labour Party now has an agenda, and it won't be transparent, it won't be honest, it doesn't tell people what it's intending to do. But that's the course we're taking. So, no, I don't trust Keir Starmer. I've told you the Australians got this right, and we can get it right. We have to, basically, there are lots of islands offshore Scotland and England. Rona is an uninhabited island. We can easily take these people straight to an offshore island, put them in a tented camp, ensure they've got enough food, and then tell them that when they're ready to go home, we'll facilitate their return home. But they shouldn't ever be allowed to land on the mainland. And when I see the RNLI and Border Patrol bringing these people in, providing them with blankets and water, and they're then going to go into probably a 4-star hotel and then be distributed across the UK and damage the fabric of Britain and the quality of life for a lot of the people living here. They'll probably end up being a burden on the state, and we're then told that our taxes are going up to pay for all this nonsense. So I can tell you the British are beginning, I think, to become very disaffected with this. They're very
seriously. I think
they're very decent people. They don't want to in any way do down anybody else. But we are not the provider of global welfare, Kevin. We are. The responsibility of the state is to the British people who pay their taxes, who've helped build this country into what it is, and to bring people here who are ultimately going to freeload on the back of the British taxpayer in ever-increasing numbers. In the end, we will either end up with social unrest or we're going to end up with a tax strike from those people who are just going to refuse to pay their taxes. And I've got quite a lot of people who keep saying to me, I don't feel I should be paying my taxes. Well, do you know what? It's illegal not to pay your taxes, but there is an increasing argument to say that people are not basically getting good value for the tax that they're passing over to a deficient state, which is not now acting in their best interests.
The state is in a terrible state. Let me ask you a last question, Rupert. I've got a slight bone to pick with you. I was on air and you tweeted, and I announced it. I said, oh my God, Rupert Lowe's up in Great Yarmouth. He's just seen some migrants about to sort of pitch up on the beach in East Anglia. I thought, my God, they've gone all the way around the coast of Kent, all the way up there. Well, it turned out they weren't migrants. They were some charity rowers raising money for a very worthy cause. And you, I believe, gave them £1,000 for your mistake. Tell us, how did you feel when you worked out?
Well, it was actually a highly entertaining event in the end, and I found it incredible that it made national headlines almost for an entire day. I mean, they do say, Kevin, that any publicity is good publicity.
As long as they spell your name right.
We certainly got a lot of publicity out of it. But yes, I mean, the good people of Great Yarmouth, who are fantastic people. I'm actually down there tomorrow and on Friday. So I'm taking a pair of binoculars down to the office so that we can actually scan the coast a bit more effectively. But these lads, whether they played us or not, I don't know. But I'm pleased to say I think we've helped them raise quite a lot of money for motor neurone disease, which is a very noble charity. Yeah. I had actually given some money to the motor neurone disease charity a couple of years ago when my wine merchant's partner died of motor neurone disease, and he had a whip round for them. So they're a very, very good charity. It's a terrible disease. Anyway, these lads were 800 meters offshore wearing black hoodies. So it was to the naked eye in a dinghy that looked not more like a sort of a migrant dinghy than a rowing boat. So I think it was an honest mistake, and there was a crowd of people from Great Yarmouth who were watching them progress around the coast and were extremely concerned, as you say, and keen to understand how a migrant boat had ended up quite so far up the coast of Britain. But
I hate to say it, Rupert.
What I'm delighted to tell you is that both myself as the local MP and the good people of Great Yarmouth are on our guard, a bit like Captain Mannering, against any form of illegal landing on the beaches of Great Yarmouth, Galston, Hemsby, Caister, wherever it happens to be. We're going to be on our guard, Kevin, and we're going to try and show the rest of Britain the way to protect your coastline.
I fear, Rupert, it's probably only a matter of time before some real migrants turn up there. But in the meantime, it was very funny, and you did a good thing, and they ended up with an extra £1,000.
Yes, I gave extra £1,000 because I thought, credit to them, they're doing a great job. We didn't actually say migrants were landing. We said if migrants are landing on Great Yarmouth, in Great Yarmouth, they should be immediately deported. So we've actually made a complaint to the BBC. I'm expecting to get another complaint from the BBC, who seem to enjoy trying to beat me with every stick they possibly can. Yeah. And they've had to apologise once. I think they're probably going to have to apologise here as well. But no, look, it was an entertaining 24 hours, and it it made national headlines, which was incredible, really.
Well, it made my show as well, live. But listen, good for you. Stay vigilant, because as I say, I wouldn't mind betting that next time you see some migrants off the coast, they'll be real migrants. But good to know you are on your guard, Rupert, and very nice of you to make that generous donation, and very good of you to talk to me. It's really been an entertaining half an hour. Thank you very much.
Pleasure, Kevin. Okay, all the best.
Rupert Lowe there, independent MP for Great Yarmouth, with that story. Bro, there's migrants! No, it was a charity rowers. Right, we're going to go to break now. When we come back, I've got lots of phone calls, so let's talk. It's good to talk on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Taking your calls in just a little while. We're going to be talking about David Lammy and his £50,000 party at your expense. You pay for it, taxpayers paid for it, and maybe we'll revisit his fishing licence problem, angling with JD Vance in his own property. Well, it's not his, but it's the Foreign Secretary's official residence, Chevening, with a big lake. Him and JD Vance go fishing there. Turns out they should have had fishing licences and are both subject to £2,500 fines. For once, I hope that David Lammy and JD Vance get off the hook, because that's a very, very silly situation, and kind of cool of Lammy to reveal it. He's written to the Environment Agency to humbly apologise for his very, very serious error. But what is very serious is he spent 50 grand on a party, a summer reception, our money. We'll talk about that in a little while. In the meantime, let's go to Bournemouth and talk to a new caller, Thelma. Hello, Thelma.
Hello, Kevin. I just wanted to say I live about 3 miles from Bournemouth town centre, as do my family, and I have 2 granddaughters, one 18 and one 25, who used to love to go to Bournemouth in the evening to clubs and pubs and whatnot, but now it's not safe for them to go anymore. So that's happened to lots of people.
Yeah, no, I mean, Bournemouth, I mean, you've got those 3 asylum seeker hotels, haven't you? The Roundhouse, the Chime, and what's the Britannia. So you've got hundreds of asylum seekers, and I hear, I mean, I've had a few calls from Bournemouth, that they've really completely changed the nature of refined Bournemouth, Britain's favourite seaside resort.
Yes, but what I wondered, would it be a deterrent if a sexual, one that committed a sexual thing and was charged, would it be a deterrent to others if that perpetrator was given something like bromide that they used to give to the First World War men who were away from their
to keep their libidos down? I remember that. Well, I don't remember it personally. Don't get me wrong.
Yes, but there must be medication that suppresses sexual urges.
Well, bromide does, doesn't it? I'm not sure. They used to put it in the soldiers' tea, didn't they?
Yes, of something. But if the perpetrator was given that something to suppress his sexual urges, would that be a deterrent to others that thought they might want to?
Well, you know, I mean, it's probably a long shot in liberal Britain, but it's certainly worth a thought, and it would be a deterrent. There's no doubt about that.
It would.
I think Thelma, your sort of blue sky thinking is the sort of thing that we ought to be exploring. I'm not sure whether the bromide solution is a goer, but it's interesting.
Well, there must be more modern things than bromide now, but maybe they had to have an injection once a week that would stop them, their sexual,
Well, I suppose you could go down that route. As I say, I suspect it will get.
I mean, people would say, "Oh, that's against their
human rights." That's exactly what I'm thinking. The human rights police will be down on you like a ton of bricks for this one.
Yes, but if you had very bad a mental episode and you were taken in somewhere, you were sectioned, you'd be given medication to keep you calm, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And so why not? I mean, if it would save somebody being raped, a 14-year-old
if anything is worth trying to save people from being raped, and I know that down in Bournemouth you've got a real rising problem with that.
Yes, I mean, but look, I'm in my 80s now, but I still love to go to Bournemouth. I'm only 3 miles from there, and I like to get the bus and then get onto Bournemouth Gardens and walk to the sea. But now I feel nervous even in the daytime because there's so many funny people walking about. You can smell cannabis everywhere.
It's such a shame, Thelma. Listen, Thelma, be careful with that, though. I'm telling you. I mean, just don't do that on your own. I'm serious. It's sad. It's a sad thing to have to say, but
it is. And sometimes I need to draw cash out of the cash machines, but I have to go inside. I have to go
inside
now and go inside, and because I'm frightened in case they're watching me, and
it's so sad, Thelma. Listen, Thelma, I've got to go, but you be careful on your solo trips to Bournemouth, and we'll think about your solution to the problem. Listen, really good to talk to you, though, Thelma, and look after yourself. Nice to talk. Thelma in Bournemouth. Let's go to break now. When we come back, we'll talk about David Lammy, his fishing licence, and his lavish party. That next. Stay tuned.
There's no discernible plan here. If they'd come in on day one and had a plan, you would grant them a bit of time to allow the plan to bed in, right? You don't expect miracle results on day one, but I can't discern what the plan is. And it does seem like the UK's business model at the moment is to chase out all of our millionaires and billionaires, wave them goodbye as they go abroad, and welcome in vast numbers of people who aren't typically particularly productive in the economy and are often on welfare. That is the UK business model.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's going to work out. Yeah, I'm not sure it's going to work out well for us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's talk about David Lammy. As you know, he's had fishing licence problems. That's the least of his problems, well, in terms of us putting him under the microscope. Never mind his fishing. I just think that's quite funny. Him and J.D. Vance, and J.D. Vance's kids. Couple of rods down to the lake at Chevening. Foreign Secretary's fantastic stately home, his official residence at the weekend. And anyway, it turned out they needed fishing licences, and they didn't have them. And they now face £2,500 fines. But that isn't really what I want to talk about. What I really want to talk about is something, that's just funny. This, I think, is something of a scandal. That Lammy threw a party called the Summer Reception, Foreign Office Party, on July the 1st at Lancaster House in central London, and it cost basically £50,000 one night, few drinks for the great and the good, 50 grand, our money. Let's talk to social and political commentator James Melville. Hello, James.
Evening, Kevin.
Now, this was a written parliamentary answer to a question from Shadow Transport Secretary Richard Holden. He said that this party, that the Foreign Office, the Foreign Secretary, threw on July the 1st, he obviously either went or he saw it and saw what a lavish event it was. So Richard Holden said, how much did this cost? You're allowed to do this. So he got a written answer, and the cost to the public purse of Lammy's largesse was a whopping £49,069.88. One night, one party. This comes after Pat McFadden, the cabinet, Keir's cabinet enforcer, if you like, announced in March much tighter new spending controls, especially for hospitality. So MPs and cabinet ministers were not to be allowed to spend so much on hospitality. How does 50 grand for one night, a party for one night, how does 50 grand fit into this new crackdown on hospitality spending? It doesn't really, doesn't it? That is a grotesque amount of taxpayers' money to waste on a few drinks for the great and the good for a summer party, isn't it?
It is. It's a hypocrisy again of this government. They said they were going to clean up this sort of stuff, that they were going to clean up, all kinds of different things, run a better, more transparent and ethical government, and they haven't. And I think that's one of the many reasons why Labour are tanking in the polls. So much so it's probably the most unpopular first-year government in living memory, because they're a bunch of hypocrites on every single level. And, I think there was an element of good faith attached to Labour when they came in. They certainly really didn't seal the deal in terms of, love for, Labour coming in, but we're willing to all give them a bit of a chance. And they blew it straight away on a number of different things, winter fuel allowance and pensioners, but also the freebies culture, which was pretty much there right at the start, and it's carried on. And so the vast majority of people in this country have given up on this government already. It's going to be a long 4 years for us, and it's going to be a long 4 years for them. And right at the centre of this is this sanctimonious claptrap that somehow they're holier than thou, and they're better than everyone else, and yet actually they're no different. So yes, the Tories are bogged down in a lot of this stuff, but Labour are no different. And we're willing to give them a chance, and they've blown it. And I don't think there's any way back now. And I think the worst thing about it, from Starmer through the rest of the cabinet, through the Labour MPs, is that sort of virtue that they wrap everything, that somehow they're just a little bit better than the rest of us, but their behaviour indicates otherwise. And the second part of this that's really important is this ongoing cost of living crisis, where our taxes are going up, record tax burden, plus, the expenses on essential goods. A lot of people are struggling, yet we pay the wages of these individuals, we elect them, and yet they're carrying on as if somehow they're above the rest of us, and they're treating us like suckers. Yeah. And we need better than this. It doesn't take much, I think, for politicians to be public servants. And there's two aspects to that. One, effective policies that improve the country. But secondly, it's about standards as well. And the Labour government promised, they've broken a lot of promises, they promised to clean this sort of thing up, and they haven't.
Yeah, don't forget, it's old Starmer when they came into power, when the nation made the profound mistake of electing Labour to government. He said this will be a government of service. And he actually exudes, or he is the epitome of the sort of sanctimonious hypocrisy that you're talking about. So there is this sort of socialist piety about all of them. We're here to serve the people, we're here to smash the class system, to make everything equal. Well, throwing a £50,000 party, where's the socialism in that? Where's the decency in that? And in what way does Lammy think that spending 50 grand's worth of taxpayers' money for a few drinks and canapes for the great and the good helps this country, helps the Foreign Office. It's just grandstanding, isn't it? You know, I'm the Foreign Secretary here. Have some free champagne on me. It's grandstanding. It's sort of almost showing off, isn't it?
It is, and I think the debate needs to be shifted not so much about why they're increasing taxes. It should be about how they're spending our taxes. You know, there's an argument for a UK version of Doge, you know, root and branch, because ultimately it's our money they're spending. And they promised that they would tighten up this sort of thing. So again, there's a couple of problems. So you've got that kind of the lavish lifestyle that they all lead. You know, it's not just this party, it's all the trips around the world, you know, claiming things like, you know your place in terms of carbon emissions, but will swan off on private jets and motorcades and clink glasses and glamorous destinations. It's all of that. And then it's just bad use of our taxpayers' money. I mean, Chagos is a perfect example. Carbon capture machines. You know, what's happening with the accommodation on asylum seekers. There's so much wastage at all levels. And I think what the public want more than anything else is a return to what the social contract should be. We pay our taxes, we get a return on investment. And so whether it's what Lammy's doing or whether it's misspent by government on, you know, vanity schemes like carbon capture projects, it's all a sum of the parts. You know, we're all struggling right now. The cost of living crisis has been going on since COVID. And what we want from our ever-increasing tax burden is that not just a return on investment. We want accountability, and we want governments not to give off the impression that they're living some sort of lavish lifestyle on our money. And that is getting under the skin of the British people right now.
I couldn't agree more. And it is this sort of, it's classic Labour, isn't it? Socialist politicians, no matter what they say, they do believe, they always have believed in the magic money tree, that if you're the government, there's money. There's all, you know, you can spend whatever you like because the money will become available. Well, the point is, we are on the edge, on the brink of a kind of debt abyss. You know, so this government may soon find out catastrophically that actually the supply of money that it thinks is never ending is not never ending. Now, of course, 50 grand in the great scheme of things is neither here nor there, but it plays into the way socialist politicians always are. They just think that the public purse is bottomless and it will always give. It is the purse that keeps on giving. So they don't think anything about spending 50 grand on a few drinks for their mates. Yeah, classic socialism, classic Labour government.
Yeah, we've got a real problem at the moment. The national debt has gone up by just more than 2 trillion in the last 20 years. You know, there's a number of major circumstances around that. You know, there's a financial crisis and there's also COVID response. But there's also the sense that governments are spending so much money in the wrong direction. I mean, how is a growth strategy linked to increasing taxes? I mean, this is basic economics, especially regarding small and medium enterprises. We've got farmers, for instance, who are facing a choice of selling their land. Thousands of farmers, over 6,000 farming-related businesses have stopped since the Labour budget. That is not a growth strategy whatsoever. So it's a combination of terrible economic policy punishment politics from Labour governments, where they're hammering small and medium enterprises, but they're giving a lot of pay rises to the public sector. But who are our wealth generators here? It's our small and medium enterprises, the very bedrock of our society. Someone once said that Britain is a nation of shopkeepers. It fundamentally means we're a nation of, you know, that small and medium enterprise culture that's being hammered by this government. And then you have all the stealth taxes as well, which is affecting households. And then you get, and it's an important point with Lammy and what he's doing, we have our politicians not just misspending our money, a lack of growth strategy based on punishment politics and ideology, and then politicians behaving like this. They have forgotten the most important aspect of the social contract. They're public servants. Yeah. You know, they should be spending our money wisely, not giving off the impression that they're above it, but not just that, that they're rubbing our noses in it. clinking glasses with 50 grand parties. And that is why, after 1 year, already the vast majority of people in this country have walked away from the Labour government.
Absolutely.
They see right through them.
Absolutely. What are we going to do? I mean, talking of money and the money the government has, what are we going to do about the fact that it emerged today that 1 million more people have been put on benefits for life since Labour came into power? What did we learn yesterday? That 8 million people are on universal credit and 3.7 million of them have been signed off work for life. We have more and more people who are just totally reliant on benefits. Our benefits bill, our welfare bill in this country is £300 billion a year. We are addicted to welfare, and it is becoming a clear and present crisis.
It is, and it's only going to get worse with the growth of AI. I mean, if you look at, for instance, the admin and secretarial aspects of many forms of employment, that's going to be stripped out by AI. So it's only going to get worse. So it comes back, and this is the frustrating thing with so many governments. They aren't getting to the heart of the matter on so many issues. You could talk about NHS, immigration, you name it. There's issues that aren't being solved. But one of them is about our employment structure moving forward to then lower what you talked about, the welfare bill. And the only way you can do that is actually providing more jobs and more industry. So it comes back to that. Do you remember what the Tories said years ago? Northern powerhouse. They didn't do anything about it. It's just empty rhetoric. They all do that. But there is something in there that what we need is to reboot those industrialised areas that have been forgotten about for 40 years. I mean, I've spent a bit of time in the northwest of England, northeast of England, certain the central belt of Scotland, and they're hollowed out. These communities have got high unemployment. It's generational. A lot of them are on welfare. Because their industries have gone, their communities are just like dustlands. And that's why a lot of those communities are reacting to a number of circumstances, because they feel completely forgotten about. So the only way we can address this problem is to actually have the most important thing that I think a government can do right now, and it'll take time, is to regenerate our industry and manufacturing, reboot those communities, lower down the welfare costs, and also turn our country back into an exporting economy rather than an importing economy.
Absolutely. That's unlikely to happen under Labour, though. Keir Starmer, by the way, this petition demanding an immediate general election, it's now got 700,000 signatures, which is a kind of a record. Keir has, of course, rejected calls for this general election. And he will continue to mismanage this country. Those signing that petition, I completely sympathise with their sentiments, but it is a waste of space. We're stuck with this lot for 4 more years, and James, that doesn't bear thinking about. Really good to talk to you again. Let's get you on again soon. That was James Melville, social and political commentator. 50 grand for a party. Your money, you pay for that. One night, 50 grand. Let me know what you think about that. 03444 99 1000. I think the main thing that infuriates me is I wasn't invited. No, seriously, that is a ridiculous, obscene amount for a politician to spend on a party for one night. Next up, we'll be talking about that Alaskan summit and J.D. Vance's holiday in the Cotswolds. That next. Stay tuned.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. In a little while, 20 minutes or so, we'll be taking your calls. I've got lots lined up, but get involved. 03444991000. Let me know what you think about the asylum seeker crisis, the asylum seeker rape crisis, the sex crime crisis, as more and more migrants break into this country successfully. Some of them boasting about it on TikTok. This is the best place. Tell all your friends, come on over. This is the promised land. Unbelievable. Let me know what you think about all that. 03444991000. Should the Education Secretary be wasting her time? Well, that's a loaded question, this, isn't it? Should the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, be wasting her time telling teachers they've got the right to ask pupils to call them MX, MX? Because they're gender neutral and they don't want to be called Mr, Mrs or Miss. Gender neutral is a sort of fashionable pretense. It's not really the point, though. The point is that really what the Education Secretary is going to waste their time with? Let me know what you think about that. And what about the jog squad? The jogging squad in Surrey. Undercover female police officers dressed as joggers trying to catch catcallers. I think that's a good use of police time, good use of taxpayers' money. They admit it's not. They don't think catcalling is necessarily against the law. It's not against the law, but according to Surrey Police, it can lead on to serious crime. So what they're saying is a wolf whistler, for example, is a potential rapist. I think that's cobblers. I really do. But let me know what you think about that. Is that a good way to spend taxpayers' money? Getting WPC's female officers to dress up as joggers to try and catch male catcallers. 03444991000. I'll read some of your WhatsApp voice notes as well when we get there, and some of your messages. But first, let's talk all things America. Need to talk about the upcoming on Friday summit, if you like, in Alaska between Donald Trump and, of course, Vladimir Putin. Will that achieve peace in our times? Will that achieve peace in Ukraine? Donald's got his hopes up, but I would say good luck with that. But, at least he's trying. We'll talk about that in a little while. I also, first, though, would like to talk about J.D. Vance's vacation, the VP's vacation in the Cotswolds, in Britain, really, generally. So let's talk from the Heritage Foundation. That's a think tank. Based in Washington, but I believe he's over here in the home country at the moment. He is Nile Gardner. Welcome, Nile.
Thanks very much, Kevin. I'm actually in Anchorage, Alaska at the moment, so just... Yep.
Excuse me, Niall, I'm just going to sack my producer. Do you mind? Because I said, is he in Washington? She goes, no, he's here. So anyway, well, she's giving me daggers now. Anyway, well, you're on site, so excellent. Well, we'll talk about that in a little while, because it's very important. But J.D. Vance, the Anglophile vice president, he loves this country. He's got a reputation for giving us a hard time, but I think his criticisms come from love, not hate. I think he adores this country, hence taking his holidays here. So he's been here. You could call it a working holiday. He's been seen in a few farm shops, enjoying the scene. He went fishing with the Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, down at Chevening, the Foreign Secretary's official residence. I don't know if you saw the story, but they should have had a fishing licence, and they didn't. So they're both facing £2,500 fines. I hope they don't get that, but quite an amusing sideshow there. Also, by the way, David Lammy didn't catch any fish, but J.D. Vance and his kids did. Another victory for America.
No surprise there, I think.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, he's not even any good at fishing. But let's talk about the more serious side of this vacation. It's a sort of semi-working holiday. He's been meeting British politicians. So he saw Nigel Farage, Reform UK, of course, this morning for breakfast. But the most interesting side of this was that he's met up with not the Tory leader, Kemi Badenoch, but with the Tory Shadow Justice Secretary, a man on manoeuvres, make no mistake about it, a man who's eyeing the top job, Robert Jenrick. Now, apparently, Kemi Badenoch said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't make it, I'm too busy." We have sightings of her on the Isle of Wight for some reason. But I'm just wondering, who knows what the truth of this... Apparently there was a scheduled clash or something. If I was the leader of the opposition, the leader of the Tory party, I don't care what my other appointments were, in order to meet the second most powerful person on the face of the planet, the Vice President of America, and arguably the next President of America, I think I would make sure I got to see him. But Kemi Badenoch, apparently not. Do you think, though, Niall, I suspect that J.D. Vance was probably happier to see Robert Jenrick than he would have been to see Kemi Badenoch. I suspect that J.D. Vance might sort of look at Jenrick in the way he probably sees himself, the next boss. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, Kevin. And of course, J.D. Vance did actually meet with Kemi back in December in the United States. And so they had a meeting back then. I don't think there's been a meeting since that time, actually. And as you point out, of course, Robert Jenrick is a major rising political star with a tremendous social media presence. A lot of people in America, I think, watched the videos that Robert has posted in recent months about huge levels of crime in London, for example, and what the French are doing, knifing Britain in the back over the small boats coming across the channel. So I do think that Robert Jenrick is becoming a well-known political figure in the United States now, and so it's natural that J.D. Vance is meeting with Robert, and I think they have a lot in common, and I expect that was a very good meeting, actually. So that I think that makes a lot of political sense there. They're both, I think, figures with rising political stars on both sides of the Atlantic. So it makes a lot of sense.
Do you think J.D. Vance will be the next president of the United States?
Well, that remains to be seen. And President Trump, of course, is not, directly.
I know it remains to be seen, Niall. Do you think he will be the next president?
Well, I think he could well be the next president of the United States. He's a very compelling figure, a very charismatic figure. And I think also with regard to J.D. Vance, if you look at his Munich speech, of course, back in February, that was one of the most important speeches ever delivered on European soil by a U.S. leader. And so he's somebody with a deep understanding of international affairs, what's happening in Europe. He's very concerned, of course, about the assault on freedom of speech in Britain. And I think that J.D. Vance is absolutely right to point out that what's happening in the UK is fundamentally dangerous, frankly, locking people up for their tweets. And I think he's 100% right to be pointing this out. And he's someone who cares deeply, I think, about the future of Britain and the special relationship. That's a big positive in my view.
Yes, indeed. There's a story out today that's just hit the Times today that the Trump administration has let it be known that it's very concerned about about human rights in Britain and, of course, freedom of speech and freedom of expression. So this kind of cultural fear that our American friends have about the decline of freedom in Britain, I think is a very real thing. As you say, J.D. Vance made that very clear in that keynote speech in Munich. a gathering of all the European leaders. He was addressing all of them, saying all of you are on the wrong track when it comes to freedom and freedom of expression. But he particularly attacks Britain. And a lot of people, a lot of the papers here said, oh, he hates us and all this kind of stuff. Well, I think, as J.D. Vance is proving right now, where's he taking his vacation? Great Britain, England, as Americans always call the whole country. I think his criticisms of this country and his worries about Britain don't come from a position of kind of American contempt or, you know, hatred or dislike. I think his criticisms and fears come from an attitude of love. I think he loves this country and he's genuinely worried about it. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And the fact that he's in the Cotswolds, he's chosen, of course, England as the location for his family vacation says a great deal. And I think that what we're seeing in Washington right now is a great deal of concern about what's happening in Britain, but also the whole of Europe. And Europe is moving in the wrong direction on so many fronts: freedom of speech, but also mass migration, Islamification. And J.D. Vance is paying very close attention to what's happening here. And many American conservatives are very concerned about the future of Europe. After all, this is the cradle of Western civilization in Europe, and there are great concerns over the future of Europe. And J.D. Vance, I think, is leading the charge in terms of condemning the way in which the left are trying to destroy Europe today, and that includes what Keir Starmer is doing in the UK, frankly. And J.D. Vance, like President Trump, very pro-British, believes in the special relationship. President Trump will be over in the UK in September 17th and 19th for the state visit. He's the most pro-British president of the modern era. And I think that Vice President Vance shares Trump's overall approach towards a special relationship, which is a special relationship really matters, it's important, and Americans deeply care about it, and that's a great thing.
Totally agree. Now, you are in Anchorage in Alaska, so you're on the scene. Well, before we actually talk about this meeting itself, tell us about the atmosphere there. What you know, these kind of events tend to attract huge entourages. Entire towns are converted, ready for the meeting of these two great men, the two most powerful men on the face of the planet, arguably. What's the atmosphere like there?
Yeah, it's an interesting atmosphere as the the world's media is flooding into Anchorage as we speak, and every single, I think, hotel room is booked in the city already, and so this is, I think, one of the most important summits, frankly, of the 21st century so far in many respects, and I think the fact that President Trump has forced Putin to the negotiating table is a demonstration of how effective Donald Trump has been, actually, as the leader of the free world. I mean, no one in Europe could force Putin to the negotiating table, but President Trump is doing that. I would also point out that, of course, President Trump, as the leader of the United States, is a far more powerful figure than Vladimir Putin, and there's just a huge gulf, really, between the world superpower today, the United States, and a sinking, declining Russia. That doesn't mean, of course, that Putin's not dangerous. He's very, very dangerous, as we've seen in Ukraine. But there is a massive gulf between the United States today and a Russia in decline. And Russia is no longer, of course, a superpower. It's being eclipsed dramatically by China in Asia. But Putin is a huge troublemaker on the European stage, and I think Trump is reining him in right now, frankly, and that's a good thing to see.
Bear with us, Niall. We're going to play Trump making his latest comments on the upcoming meeting with Putin, of course, which will actually happen on Friday. But here's Donald.
No, it was always going to be I was going to meet with President Putin, and then after that I'm going to call the leaders and President Zelensky. I'm going to call President Zelensky, and then I'll call, probably in that order, the leaders. there's a very good chance that we're going to have a second meeting, which will be more productive than the first, because the first is I'm going to find out where we are and what we're doing. Again, this is Biden's war. This isn't my war. He got us into this thing, and it should have never happened. This war would have never happened if I were president. But it is what it is, and I'm here to fix it.
Biden's war. Well, Niall, on Friday they come together, as you say. This is a testament to the power of Donald Trump. He has made this happen. But then again, you know, there have been talks all along the line between America and Putin and Russia, and they've constantly come to nothing. And Donald Trump, a couple of times in the last month or so, has expressed his extreme frustration with this, actually being quite disparaging about Putin at some point. But anyway, they're going to be in the same room. Zelensky isn't going to be there at first. Trump saying that if we get anywhere, maybe with a bit of luck he can get him into the room. But what do you think it is that Trump imagines that he can achieve when he sits down in Anchorage in Alaska with Vladimir Putin on Friday?
Yes, well, I think there's one immediate goal for the summit, and that's actually to bring in a ceasefire for the war in Ukraine. And I think President Trump is very clear about that. This is not a summit to discuss territorial issues in Ukraine. That will be decided later, and that, of course, would involve Zelensky. And President Trump spoke today about the possibility of a trilateral meeting with Zelensky as well. That could be as early as a few days from now. And this meeting on Friday is all about bringing an end to the war and an immediate ceasefire, an end to the hostilities. And as Donald Trump said, there will be severe consequences for the Russians if they don't agree to that. And the United States has the power, of course, to cripple the Russian economy through sanctions and tariffs, but also, of course, secondary sanctions against countries that do business with Russia, including China and India. And also, I mean, frankly, there are a lot of European countries that do business with the Russians. You look at EU continuing to buy Russian liquefied natural gas, LNG, at a huge level. So there's massive hypocrisy, frankly, within the European Union, and sanctions will be applied against anyone who does business with Russia, including some European countries. So they're on notice as well.
Isn't the territorial element kind of intractable? You know, Putin wants territory. Trump has suggested, yes, to Zelensky, to Ukraine, yes, you will have to give up some land. Zelensky every single time turns around and says, no, we're not going to give up any land. Isn't that an intractable situation?
Yeah, it's certainly an incredibly complicated, difficult situation, because you're dealing with a Russian leader who, in effect, is a brutal tyrant. He doesn't really care about the loss of human life. And already the Russians have lost about 1 million men killed or wounded, actually. That's just on the Russian side. I think the Ukrainians have lost around 500,000 dead or wounded in the war. So huge levels of loss of life here. But Putin, up to this point, hasn't really cared about it. I think he cares more, frankly, about the Russian economy, which is why Trump is talking about economic pressure here and really crippling and humiliating the Russians economically. But as you point out, the territorial issue is incredibly difficult to negotiate this. And I think, of course, it's vitally important the Russians do not take any additional territory, that the war does not enable the Russians to make any further territorial gains. That's top priority for the United States, ensuring the war ends swiftly so the Russians do not take any further territory. It's very difficult, of course, to get the Russians out of territory they have taken, but the objective right now is to stop them taking any further territory.
And to what extent, J.D. Vance said only the other day America is ready to walk away from Ukraine. Donald Trump has always made that point, if necessary. In a sense, to some extent, they're responding to the feelings of the American people. There's a similar sentiment in Britain. You know, we sort of say, well, okay, you know, Ukraine's very wrong, has been wronged here terribly by Russia, and we should support them as much as possible. But just like Americans, but well, especially us, we're all struggling with the cost of living, rising taxes, and we sort of feel, well, why are you giving billions to Ukraine, giving all our weapons to Ukraine? Why don't you concentrate on us? Very prevalent feeling in the States, to an extent. J.D. Vance and Donald Trump responding to that. So J.D. Vance said the other day, America is ready to walk away from Ukraine. To what extent do you think, in Donald Trump's mind, this is a kind of last roll of the dice, where he's going to put every effort into trying to achieve peace, a ceasefire, trying to achieve something? But if he doesn't, he will be able to say, look, I've given it my best shot. I've tried very, very hard. America now walks away. Europe can deal with this. We're out of here. Do you think that may be in his mind?
Well, that's a very important issue that you raise, and I think that President Trump's patience, of course, with Putin is running very thin, really, and Putin has behaved in an abominable fashion, frankly, and he's been very disrespectful, I think, in President Trump's mind. And as for the future of Ukraine, I think that there is certainly a growing view here in the United States that this is a war in Europe's backyard. US resources in the defense of Europe will be increasingly, I think, focused upon the defense of NATO territory. And of course, it's up to European leaders to decide if they want to continue with a war that has already dragged on for many years. But I don't think there's much willingness, frankly, on the part of the Germans or the French, for example, to fight some kind of ground war in Ukraine. And I do think you've seen a lot of empty talk and rhetoric coming from European leaders, a lot of saber rattling. But at the end of the day, European militaries are incredibly weak. The United States, of course, has to really defend the free world on multiple fronts, from Europe to Asia to the Middle East. There are a wide array of adversaries the United States has to face, including the Chinese and also the Iranian threat as well. And you throw into the mix North Korea. The US, as the world superpower, has to focus on many parts of the world. And I think that, with regard to the war in Ukraine, Europe will have to increasingly, I think, shoulder much of the burden for that. And the United States has to focus on many other areas, and not least the rising threat from communist China, which is an immense threat in the Asia Pacific. And so the US has to concentrate very heavily on that, in addition to preventing the likes of Iran, for example, from becoming a nuclear weapons power. So the US has a lot on its plate right now and cannot be everywhere all at the same time.
Sure. Listen, just the last question. I was in the States, in California for 10 years, and in LA, traveled a lot around the States, never quite got to Alaska, always wanted to. So how's that Anchorage? What's that place like?
Yeah, I mean, it's a relatively small city in a very vast state, and just flying in to Alaska, you get a sense of the massive scale of the state. Huge mountains, some of them snow-covered mountains as you fly in.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely remarkable. It gives you an idea of the vastness and the scale of the United States, and the sense of greatness of America, really, in so many respects. And Alaska really is stunningly beautiful, has to be said.
And the people, I think, are what they call down-to-earth and fun.
Yes, very down-to-earth, very friendly, actually.
Oh, yes.
And I think Alaska has a great spirit about it, actually. And it's great to be.
Fantastic, unusual place. Listen, Niall, great to talk to you. Really interesting, and good luck on Friday. Nile Gardner there from the Heritage Foundation up there in Alaska ahead of the big meeting on Friday, Putin and Trump. It's quite something. We'll be on air, by the way, while that is happening on Friday, and we will be monitoring exactly what's happening there and bringing you all the details. So something to look forward to. Let's go to break now. When we come back, your calls, your messages and your WhatsApp voice notes. Lots still to come. Stay tuned.
There's no discernible plan here. If they'd come in on day one and had a plan, you would grant them a bit of time to allow the plan to bed in, right? You don't expect miracle results on day one, but I can't discern what the plan is. And it does seem like the UK's business model at the moment is to chase out all of our millionaires and billionaires, wave them goodbye as they go abroad, and welcome in vast numbers of people who aren't typically particularly productive in the economy and are often on welfare. That is the UK business model.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's going to work out. Yeah, I'm not sure it's going to work out well for us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's listen to, before we go to the phones, let's listen to a WhatsApp voice note. This is Ian on the TikTok Migrant.
Ian Hemel Hempstead. That migrant that came across and shot the TikTok video is an absolute gimme for this government to send him straight back. I mean, two-tier, he's so frightened to send anyone back. He could make a real example by saying clearly this man is not in need of asylum. He's coming over here, he's making a joke of it. This is not somebody who looks like they're in fear of their lives. Send him back immediately and make all the others think again. But will he? Unlikely, isn't it?
I couldn't agree with you more, Ian. We should make an example of him and send him back. But as you quite rightly say, the chances of that are somewhere between 0 and 0. It ain't going to happen because this government's got no resolve. Never sends anyone back. Unless they do some sort of deportation deal, give them money and all that kind of stuff. All these asylum seekers come in. We never deport any of them. That's the problem. That's the problem. Ridiculous, ridiculous. Let's go to the phones. Let's talk to, she's been waiting a long time, Margaret in Surrey. Hello, Margaret.
Hi, and I'm not in Surrey anymore. I now live in Devon.
Oh, in Devon, much nicer.
Yeah, much nicer.
I'll now get a lot of complaints. I'll get a load of complaints from people who live in Surrey now. Whereabouts?
No.
Whereabouts in Devon are you?
We're in North Devon, in Dalton.
Dalton. My brother lives in Bideford. Is that it?
Not far away, not far away.
There you are, there you are. What would you like to say here, Margaret?
Now, the other day, I used to work in immigration. I worked as a presenting officer. I used to do conducive deportation. But we had a friend came down to stay, so wanted to do a bit of sightseeing. We took them on to Dartmoor, and, of course, we ended up at the prison. and went in the museum there.
Right.
And I was chatting to one of the people there that was in charge, and I said, it's been closed. When is it going to reopen? And he said, well, they've got a lot of money to spend because of the radon gas that is underneath, that is all over North Devon.
Right.
But if they're spending all this money on 4-star accommodation for people,
yes,
why can't they spend it on putting that prison back together? And that's a very good place to put people who behave badly in our country
Is that Dartford
until they
prison?
get shipped back.
So we're talking about Dartford prisons. Is that been closed down then or something?
Yes, it's been
Dartmoor.
closed
Sorry,
since
Dartmoor.
2024.
Has it?
Yeah.
I now you've reminded me. Now I did know that, but
it closed. But seemingly they are looking at getting rid of the radon gas, which is underneath.
I know about radon gas. If you buy a property in Devon,
yes, you have to have it checked. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
we did with our home, and I thought, well, you know, if it's going to be a check, and they could spend a bit of money because they're spending a bloody fortune on wonderful, wonderful hotels for people.
Yeah, how about Dartmoor?
Just taking the mick out of it.
Yeah, put them in Dartmoor. There's one of the most one of the scariest buildings I've ever seen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't want to come back.
Margaret, that's a brilliant solution. Because I got a message here that said, "Oh, Margaret wants to talk about empty prisons." I'm thinking, I thought our problem was overcrowded prisons, but you say that Dartmoor. Yeah, what a great idea. Good idea, Margaret. And thank you for a good call.
Thank you. I love you, Short.
Oh, thank you. Call me again. Call me again.
I will. Thanks a lot.
Margaret,
Bye now.
Margaret in Devon now. Blimey, you've got lots of voice notes. Here is Steve.
Hey, Kevin. Excellent show as per normal. Steve from Bedford here. Listen, if you think there's anger in the country at the moment because of this immigration, hotels, taxes, etc., 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 how boring is it saying that? Then just wait until the autumn when Rachel Reeves ups the taxes for all of us to pay for these illegal immigrants. You think it's bad now? I can only think it's going to get worse. Great show. Keep it up. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. I think you're right. I think we're going to get tax rises. There'll be tax rises of some form. I suspect income tax included. She'll have to break her solemn promise not to hit us with more taxes because she's fond of talking, isn't she, about financial black holes. Well, she's created a £50 billion financial black hole with a dreadful budget and dreadful economic policies. She's helping to run this country into the ground. Not only are we going to have big problems with taxes, the national debt. The national debt is on the brink of something catastrophic. So we're in big trouble. So I agree with you, Steve. If you think it's bad now, you ain't seen nothing yet. Extraordinary. Because I've got so many, I'm going to play another one now. Tristan on Jackie Smith. You remember Jackie Smith saying that the migrant crisis is the Tories' fault, not Labour's. Here's Tristan.
Jackie Smith. I'm sorry, but a liar. The Rwanda scheme had no chance of working, and every time when the Conservatives looked to do something, it was stopped by human rights lefty lawyers. Cliche as it say, it's what happened every single time. And so they can take full accountability for this because it was getting bad last year. And when Conservatives tried to put things forward, they stopped it. And they stopped it because of their stupid lefty liberal rubbish. And now look at what's happened. They're a disgrace to the country. They're a bunch of liars. And I literally detest this government. I detest them. I really do.
Well, Tristan, you've got to stop sitting on the fence. You really have. You've got to stop sitting on the fence. I think a lot of people would agree with Tristan. And Jackie Smith, I mean, come on. She goes, oh, the Rwanda scheme did start. They only ever sent 4 people back. Well, what about sending more back then? Why would you stop it if you've only said... It didn't start. About 4 people went back on a kind of semi-scheme where I believe we gave them some money to go back, which is a bit ridiculous. But, you know, that's 4 people. Try sending a few more back. Try sending a few hundred, maybe even a few thousand. and then the deterrent message would get through. It was ridiculous what Starmer did when he chucked, effectively, more than £700 million worth of British investment, taxpayers' money, down the drain with that impetuous juvenile act. And it's OK, Mick, just threw it away. Absolutely catastrophic decision by him. Ludicrous. Let's go to the phones. Let's talk to Grace in London.
Hi.
Hi, Grace.
I was thinking about the situation regarding teachers' pronouns.
Mooks, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it. And
who is?
and I think it's probably worth saying that the trans acquaintance I have online thinks that all of this is ridiculous as well. So it's not actually necessarily what is helpful for people. I think it's really important, personally, to be kind and compassionate towards people. I feel instinctively.
But Grace, not to the extent where we are in effect teaching kids lies.
Right. But
there's no such thing as gender neutrality.
In my mind, there's a distinction actually between having compassion for people and just agreeing with everything that they say, and I worry that we've lost that. I feel that actually, if I disagree with someone, such as if you were to claim that you were a woman, I would disagree with you, but that wouldn't mean that I didn't have respect for you as a human being, that I couldn't have empathy and compassion for you as a human being. And I feel like our society is in a place now where we presume the only way you can have decency towards someone is if you agree with everything that they say, and I don't think that that's correct.
I mean, but Grace, I made it clear in that item when we were doing the story. As far as I'm concerned, you want to, pretend you're gender neutral, say you're gender neutral. You want to say, if you're a bloke and you want to say you're a woman and live as a woman, knock yourself out. No problem at all. I don't mind. It's a free country. But I'm concerned at the point where we start imposing this ideology, this gender identity ideology, on school kids, on little kids, young people at the formative stage of their lives, because it is not scientific, it is not a fact, it's a sort of fashionable pretense. I'm gender neutral. There's no such thing as gender neutral. So that's what worries me. We are enshrining a false ideology, a non-science, an untruth on impressionable young people, school kids, and we shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I as a Christian think about how God can really hate some of the things that we do or think, and yet he still loves us. And I also believe that he made us male and female. And so as a Christian, I feel like I want to have empathy and compassion for people. And I do see some of the comments aimed at trans or non-binary people that are clearly lacking compassion. But I also think that you can have, neighbourly love for someone, even if you disagree with some things about them, in the same way that a parent or God can have love and compassion for us, even while disagreeing with some of the things we do. I think it's really important to be able to respect a human being whilst disagreeing with them.
Yeah, I agree with you, Grace. We've lost the art of disagreeing agreeably, as Peter Cardwell likes to put it, but he's got a good point. We used to be able to debate, we used to be able to disagree with each other and not hate each other. We seem to have lost that art. I actually blame the schools. Our education system no longer teaches kids how to debate, how to wage a debate. It's like, oh, you don't agree with me? I hate your guts. It's as simple as that. It's nonsense. Grace, very good point. Got to move on, though. Thank you for a good call. Grace in London. Before we go to break, let's quickly play Jim on female officers, the Jog Squad being sent out to get wolf whistled at.
Hello, Kevin. It's Jim from North London here. Just a quickie. The story you've got about the hunting pre-crimes, the Surrey police nonsense, surely it's entrapment. They're going out to fit women jogging and, inciting men to do what men naturally do and say, oh, that's a nice-looking girl, I'm going to wolf whistle. All right, maybe not. People might not agree with it, but it's entrapment. Isn't that inadmissible, or is that just in America? I might be being thick.
The police have long considered it's okay to entrap people. I agree with you, Jim. I think it's slightly dubious, but that is entrapment. You're right. They're trying to con people into committing. Well, they say it's not a crime, but to committing what they think is something very wrong, which is wolf whistling or catcalling. Yeah, it is. It is a bit dodgy. I agree with you. Let's go to break. More of your calls, more of your WhatsApp voice notes. I'll try and read a few messages when we come back.
There's no discernible plan here. If they'd come in on day one and had a plan, you would grant them a bit of time to allow the plan to bed in, right? You don't expect miracle results on day one, but I can't discern what the plan is. And it does seem like the UK's business model at the moment is to chase out all of our millionaires and billionaires, wave them goodbye as they go abroad, and welcome in vast numbers of people who aren't typically particularly productive in the economy and are often on welfare. That is the UK business model.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's going to work out. Yeah, I'm not sure it's going to work out well for us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Funny text from Mike in Durham. He says, please stop your guests from saying we have 4 years of this shower left. When we actually have 3 years, 11 months, 2 weeks, 1 day, 8 hours and 46 seconds. But who's counting? Exactly right, the countdown. Oh, God, make it end, eh? Make it end. Let's listen to a voice note. This is Sally on getting wolf whistled at. Not something that's ever happened to me.
Oh, lordy, lordy. In the 60s, I would think there was something dreadfully wrong if I walked past a building site and I didn't get a wolf whistle. How I wish I'd get one these days, but I'm far too old.
Tell you what, Sally, you come down London Bridge, let me know when you're coming past. I'll wolf whistle you any day of the week. Right, let's go back to the phones. Let's talk to Christopher, new caller from Oxford. Hello, Christopher.
Hi there, Kevin. I tell you why I'm phoning. It's really in some ways a follow-on from your last call.
Yeah.
I was a young troop leader in those days, lining the streets of Victoria Street for the arrival of the President Frey of Argentina. Mm-hmm. And right opposite, in those days, the whole of the other side of the road was under construction.
Right. I think I know what's coming.
They were hard at it. They were hard at it. And I complained to the regimental sergeant major, who's a bright lad. He said, they're just being true English.
They're just being English blokes, yeah. I mean, I don't think we should. I mean, I really don't want to get pious and puritanical about it, and I don't think we should condone catcalling and wolf whistling.
No.
But I really don't think it's the world's most important issue, and coppers should have better things to do than catch people wolf whistling. Do you know what I mean?
Well, the other thing is that I do want to mention, and that is that all these politicians who are dwelling on Ukraine forget the origins of Ukraine only in 1917. Never.
Ooh, well, this is a really bad line, Christopher.
Okay, all right.
Call me again. This is a bad line. Call back. Christopher there in Oxford. I think he was about to make an interesting point about Ukraine. Very, very quickly, can we go to Dave on Lammy's party?
Good evening, Kevin. Dave here. Well, sounds of the Lammy having a party costing £50,000. It just shows you the Labour Party and the Labour front bench do not care what we think about them. They just party on and stick their two fingers up at everybody, saying suckers for electing them in. Now, I hope those people who elected them feel ashamed, because these lot are traitors. They betrayed the country with lies and are still telling lies. Lies. Good show, Kevin.
I think he thinks there were some lies told there. Thank you, Dave. Thank you. Should we quickly listen to Ray on Lammy and Vance getting fined for fishing without a licence? I think the question is they didn't get fined, but let's hear what Ray has to say about that.
Hi there, Kevin. This is Ray from Torquay. Very rarely do I find myself taking any sort of umbrage with what you say. So I am surprised, shocked and a little saddened that you don't think that J.D. Vance and David Lammy should be fined for breaking the law. I don't understand how you can take that stance when you're usually so ferociously against two-tier anything. People do get fined for fishing offences, so they should as well. So you may have misjudged that one. Most people listening to your show would probably have an issue with you saying you hope they don't get fined. I hope they do get fined.
All right, Ray. Yes, fair enough. I stand corrected. I just can't take that very seriously, you know. Perhaps I should. You know, it would be funny if he got a £2,500 fine. But as I say, if J.D. Vance gets a £2,500 fine, I don't think it'd be very good for Anglo-American relations. Let's go back to the phones, shall we? Oh, by the way, a quick message from Hev. He says, no surprises there about Scammy Lammy's party. Remember how much was spent on biscuits when the EU mob came to visit number 10? I remember the story vaguely. It was like an obscene amount, but can't remember the actual amount. Right, let's go back. I think Christopher's back on the line. He had a bad line. Christopher, can I hear you now?
Yeah, I can hear you loud.
Much better. Yeah, you wanted to talk about Ukraine.
I was simply making the point that none of these politicians look at the history of the Ukraine. Ukraine was an unusual creation as a result of the Russian Revolution. Mm-hmm. All the people, the farmers that lived in Ukraine, were shipped on trains to the very Far East and replaced by communists.
Well, it used to be part of the Soviet Union, didn't it? Of course.
Well, yes, that's how it became part of the Soviet Union, but it wasn't part of the Soviet Union.
Here we go again. I don't know where you're calling from, Christopher, on what kind of are you on a mobile or something? Or
I'm on my mobile. I'm formerly a deputy commander of British forces in Kuwait.
That's better. It's just I'm not questioning your credentials. I'm saying it's a bad line.
No, I understood. It was the point I wanted to make, and I just leave it like that. I'll move on.
All right, Christopher, thank you very much for ringing. Call me again and maybe try a landline next time, but it was good to talk to you. Here's John. How to deal with wolf whistles.
Good evening, Kev.
Hi.
Hi, how you doing? Great show. I'd like to talk actually about the migrant crisis. Actually, listen to the show this evening. Absolutely horrified and sickened to hear that poor little lady in Bournemouth is now frightened.
Wasn't that sad? I wasn't entirely convinced, John, about her idea for bromide.
No, not that lady.
But it's a lady, of an age that we should respect. So I allowed her to make her point. I want the audience to know, and you, that I think even I don't agree with giving potential sex criminals bromide. But that was that poor lady's. But I agree with you, John. The when she was telling that story about how she used to love to go to spend the day, go to Bournemouth and walk through the gardens to the beach, and now she doesn't feel safe, and she doesn't. That is very sad because.
Very sad.
Yeah.
Very sad indeed. But where's this nightmare going to end? You've now got Mr. TikTok taking the mick out of the whole country on his phone in a 4-star hotel. I mean, seriously, what is the government doing?
Nothing, mate. There is the problem. Honestly, we're off to hell in a handcart on that. This government's doing nothing about it. And in a way, that lady's story is the epitome of everything that's going wrong in this country. An old lady in the winter of her life can't go for a nice walk by the seaside in her favourite resort because it's become very, very dangerous because there's all these asylum seeker hotels. Something wrong about that story, John. I'm with you. Thanks for a good call. Thank you. John in Wokingham there. Right, I've got a voice note from John now. Another John.
Hi, Kevin. This is John from Glasgow. The best thing that a woman can do is just answer the guy's back, because there's nothing worse than getting embarrassed in front of all your friends and your peers beside you. Bring them down and make them feel so small. That's the best thing that a woman can do, and just keep walking away from them. Thanks, Kev.
Yeah, thank you, John. Wolf whistle back at them. Yeah, try that. Yeah, it's one way of dealing with it. And let's have a final voice note. This is Pete on the Putin and Trump meeting.
Kevin, it's going to be up to Trump and Putin to sort this out. So why is Keir Starmer raising his voice and thinking it's all to do with him, that he's an important part? It's, we'll get this solved, it's a good chance we're going to get this. Right? Good God, this man can't even sort out people coming into our country illegally on the borders on the bloody south coast. Why on earth is he trying to involve himself in a war in Ukraine? The man is an idiot. Needs to go. Needs to be sacked. Step down. We want an election. This is enough. Is enough. Is enough. Is enough.
Yeah, we want an election, Pete, but we ain't going to get one. But why is he getting his oar in about Ukraine? Because he thinks he's an international statesman. I think privately he concedes he hasn't done too well on the domestic front, but he thinks he's a real star around the world. You carry on deluding yourself, Keir. But that's why, because he thinks he's a foreign statesman dynamo. Anyway, let's go back to the phones. Let's talk to Brian in Whitley Bay. Hello, Brian.
Hi, Kev. I just think this police thing is completely bonkers and it's a waste of time with policing. It's just getting away from reality, from the things that need to be done. So, I mean, Fuzzy said to some women, I bet they'll probably be wearing like tight leggings and stuff to try and get men to deliberately ogle at them or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, it's not the sort of thing I do right. I mean,
it's ridiculous. There's better things for the police to concentrate, if you ask me. As I say, I don't approve of catcalling. I'm sure most, it makes, it's reasonably harmless, but there's no getting away from the fact it makes some women feel uncomfortable, makes some women feel threatened. So it's not a good thing. But, do we want the police spending taxpayers' money on women coppers going undercover to pose as joggers to catch these people, especially when the police say, well, it's not really a criminal offence. We're doing this in case it develops into something worse, that catcalling could be a gateway to serious sexual crime. I think that's garbage, absolute garbage. Brian, I agree with you. Good call. Thank you. Brian in Whitley Bay there. Petri Hoskin, I think, will be in a second to tell you what she's got lined up for your entertainment from 10 p.m. until 1 a.m. into the small hours. But finally, let's talk to Chris in Derby. Hello, Chris.
Hi, how are you doing? You seem good.
Yeah,
the X thing.
MX. MX.
Oh, no, yeah, well, X is actually pronounced as a Z. So Xenon, yeah, you can have...
Well, is it? Not always.
Yes, it is, yeah.
Well, not always.
In the English dictionary, it is pronounced... Tell me a word.
What about exactly? Exact.
Huh? That begins with an E.
Well, no, but MX doesn't begin with X, does it?
No, it begins with...
M for mother.
Mike.
Huh?
Yeah. So MX is not MX, it's Ms.
Why? Well, why isn't exactly? Why isn't exactly?
X is pronounced.
No, well, well, it's not pronounced. No. You got this wrong. Gotcha. Why isn't exactly? Why isn't exactly then?
Yeah. Okay. I see where you're coming from with that.
Yeah. Where I'm coming from is the truth. That you're a bit mixed up about this, or should I say you're a bit mizzed up about this?
No.
Yeah.
Nice one.
It's not, X is not. It is sometimes xylophone, etc. But it's not always pronounced Z. Even if it's at the beginning of a word or at the end of a word. You see what I'm saying?
Okay. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So, where you were doing the mix.
Nah? Mix.
Mix. Yeah. It should be Ms. Therefore, that is...
No, it shouldn't be. Why do you see... You're going back to your point that I just disproved.
Okay.
I did. I just emphatically, exactly disproved your point. So don't go back to your original point. You've been proved to be wrong, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, I was wrong on that point.
And you're wrong on MX.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
So you haven't really got a point to make at all, have you?
Yeah, I have.
Well, what is it then?
X means neither one person or another.
It's just a letter.
It is a letter, but if you look in the dictionary...
It doesn't mean...